Hey, how you doing? All right, good evening, everybody. I'm going to call us to order at 7:01 p.m. for our final Washtenaw County Board of Commissioners meeting for the year. We will get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Fantastic. All right, we like a packed house, especially for our last meeting here, the season finale, some might say. There is still food out in the hall in case anyone likes some, but go ahead, Bryce, let's get started with the roll call.
Commissioner Beenan.
Present.
Commissioner Hodge.
Present.
Commissioner Labar.
Here.
Commissioner Light.
Present.
Commissioner Maciejewski.
Here.
Commissioner Robbie.
Here.
Commissioner Sanders.
Present.
Commissioner Scott.
Here.
Commissioner Somerville.
Here.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. I want to remind our friends too to make sure you turn on your microphones, otherwise you aren't recorded. And our friends online can't hear you, and we don't want to do that. We want the whole audience to be able to hear and participate, and also other people in the room might not be able to hear you. So remember, turns green. We're going to have new mics next year, I believe. We are going to have new mics. I hear they're even more user-friendly than these ones. All right, well, we're going to move right into public participation. And I want to remind my friends here that we also have a number of written public comments that you can find in our very user-friendly board portal. For those of you in the audience, you can find the written public comment online too in the packet. So I got to do what I got to do where I go over the rules of public comment again. So here at the Washtenaw County Board of Commissioners, you get 3 minutes for public comment. If you are in the room, you will join us at the podium. You will state your name and the city or township that you live in. And then you will get to speak for up to 3 minutes. We have a nice color-coded light system right there on the podium. Starts at green, goes down to yellow when you got 1 minute left, and then it goes to red. And at red, I got to stop you, and I don't want to have to do that, but it's the board rules. Also, the podium is adjustable. So based on your height, if you'd like to adjust the podium, you are welcome to do so. Please return it to wherever it needs to be at that time. If you're joining us via Zoom, if you are on via Zoom through the Zoom client, you will hit the raise hand icon to indicate that you would like to speak. Same rules apply. I'll call on you. You'll state your name, city or township. You'll unmute yourself and you'll speak for up to 3 minutes. And then if you are on Zoom by phone, you will hit the *9 buttons to raise your hand. I will call on you. You will hit *6 to unmute yourself, and you will give your up to 3 minutes of public comment. The same rules apply. Don't go over the 3 minutes, please, and state your name or township, city or township that you live in. If you forget, I will remind you because Bryce needs to get it in the minutes, and I don't want Bryce to have to remind me. He can be a scary guy sometimes when he's mad. I don't want to make Bryce mad over here. All right, would anybody like to give public comment? Please join us at the podium.
All right. Hello, my name is Julie Pastorino, and I am here today to talk to the commissioning board about the current situation with regards to Pinball Pets. As a citizen of Ann Arbor for my entire life, I have strong concerns about the diminishing number of cultural icons that we have in Ann Arbor. Over the last couple of years, I've witnessed since I was a teenager, many longstanding institutions disappear on account of increased development, increased rent, and potentially other reasons that I may not be aware of. And as somebody who has been here since I was a kid, this is super concerning to me. Pinball Pets was the first place many of myself and my peers got to go alone when we were teenagers. And it was somewhere that I was, got to spend a lot of time as a college student at the University of Michigan before I was 21. It was a place to go that was late at night where you didn't have to drink. It was a good place to meet other people and make new friends over shared interests. I'm hoping to live in Ann Arbor for the rest of my life. I was born here, went to school here. I had internships other places, but I keep coming back here. Pinball Pets was a place I was hoping to take my children to someday. And the fact that the current group who is making an appeal to be able to make construction over that area has no plan or no promise to guarantee the continued survival of Pinball Pets is really sad and depressing to me. Yesterday, I went to the meeting to talk there as well. And so I'm coming to make my appeal to you guys to please consider taking action to preserve Ann Arbor's cultural icons, because even though we definitely need more housing and more places need to be built because Ann Arbor is growing, it would be sad if more people came in only for us to have less cool things to do. Anyways, thank you for your time.
Thank you. This is a good time for me to remind or let people know that if you've never come to a public meeting like this before, we can't immediately respond to you, and we have to hear from everyone, and then you will hear responses from us.
Okay.
So.
All right. Thanks. This is my first time here.
Well, there you go. So please wait patiently, and I'm sure we will respond. Nice job, especially for a first public comment. Great. All right. Anybody else like to Come on down. Please, not all at once. Control yourselves. It's exciting time.
Okay. Hello, I am Lucas Reno. I've been a resident of Ann Arbor for over 20 years, and I am also here, well, you can see by my shirt, I wear my bias on my sleeve. However, I'd also like to speak more on the, the consequences of this development, because I was at the public comment for that last night, and it was clear to me that these developers had no plans to guarantee whether their development would help the city's very long standing problems with affordability and car dependency. In fact, they've given some indication it might be the opposite. I really do not think Ann Arbor needs another luxury high rise that will be way out of the price bracket for most of its residents. I think we should, I implore you all to reconsider this proposal, though, on that basis. I assume at least a few of you were elected on a platform of resolving these longstanding issues, and I hope you will take that consideration to heart. Also, I still have time to the union people in this room. I just want to say solidarity forever. Thank you.
I think you didn't say your city or township. You did say it. You did. Thank you. All right, great. Come on down. And while the next person's coming up, the Shelter Now banner might want to move just to the side a little bit because you don't have the whole banner in the shot. You probably want the whole banner in the shot. Just move a little bit towards the flag. Please. There you go. That's in the shot now. Good. Thank you. All right, go ahead.
Hello, good evening, Board of Commissioners. My name is Hope Jalecki. I work as a nurse practitioner at Washtenaw County Health Department. I am also a Washtenaw County resident. I live in Saine. As you know, we are currently negotiating a new contract. At the bargaining table recently, the county CFO suggested that if we wanted to see terms other than what has been presented, we should speak with our legislators. That invitation is why I'm here tonight. I'm here to advocate for economic fairness in our contract negotiations. Our attempts to diplomatically reach a fair agreement has yielded us proposals that include insurance rate increases and salary scale freezes. It's time to address the stark reality facing healthcare professionals. The current salary negotiations have been what we consider a debate of concessions. While we dedicate our lives to the well-being of this community, our pay does not reflect the gravity of that responsibility. It is time that the county recognizes nurses are the backbone of healthcare. The economic realities that we face in Washtenaw County are suffocating. The cost of living is skyrocketing, and yet nursing salaries stagnate. We require fair compensation that reflects the level of expertise, dedication, and sacrifice required in our profession. Nursing isn't just a job, it's a calling, and it demands respect. We aren't here for empty promises and hollow praises. We are here for fair wages, equitable treatment, and the acknowledgement that we are the lifeline of this county's health. Competitive salaries are not negotiable. Our community deserves healthcare professionals who are not burdened by financial stress, allowing us to focus on what truly matters, providing the best care to our community. I implore the board to consider the economic realities we face and to recognize the long-term benefits of investing in the nursing profession. Fair wages not only attract and retain skilled healthcare professionals, but also contribute to the overall economic health of our community. Let us work together to ensure that our county health department remains strong, resilient, and capable of meeting the evolving needs of our residents. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. All right, who's next? Come on down.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Mohammed Saifuddin. I'm a registered nurse in the Health Department. I live in Ann Arbor. I'm also the president of M&A. Overall, I believe all you are committed to public health, and I think you would agree with this definition from the CDC Foundation that overall public health deals with the health of entire populations. In the Washington County Health Department, all this falls on nurses. We carry out this mission. We have a great team throughout the health department, but nurses really form the backbone of this. And as you know, we're highly dedicated. That's why we stay in the health department. We're very professional. We're knowledgeable. We have a great deal of expertise. We do a lot for our residents here, not just for infectious diseases, but we do case management for for children and adults with special medical problems. We do maternal and infant health. Our knowledge, our expertise, all of that is not, we don't have a salary that's commensurate with that. And that's been known for some time. This is not a secret. An example of how low the salary is, MAG, which did put us on a trajectory, established a minimum of $56,000 and change, which is actually an insult to a professional registered nurse if you're working full time. And this is witnessed by the last 4 people we've been able to hire, registered nurses, and thank God we're able to hire people because we had a hard time for a long time. And they've been hired at 9% above the minimum, at $61,000 and change. And also as a stark example, a new graduate coming out of school, going to U of M, and we're not looking for parity. We're 2 different organizations. We understand that. But a new graduate, an inpatient or outpatient, they could work Monday through Friday in the clinic. They start at $76,000 and around $600, $20,000 more than those of us. I came with 38 years experience in nursing. We have an immunization coordinator who came with 18 years experience. She's an expert. Everyone I work with is an expert in what they do. They're excellent. And Administrator Gill, sorry, every time I practice, I said Gill. Administrator Dill, he recognizes, he put this in his work stabilization plan when he stated last summer, compensation of nurses is another area of the organization that still requires attention despite MAG. Everybody understands that. We had high expectations coming into this contract negotiation. We expected that acknowledgement from the county, as well as hearing that we were going to get scales in the last MAG negotiations. That seems to kind of be fizzling out. We're coming out of a long 10-year concessionary contract. And what we're facing is, first, we were offered a 2% salary increase, then a 3% rather. That won't pay for even if we have to pay for higher premiums. So I want to ask the board that you've been able to, through your tenacity, through your creativity, you've been able to find the resources to sustain very healthy increases for our administrators in Washington County. And we don't belie that at all. People deserve to be paid what they're doing, their expertise they bring. But we're asking you to use that same energy and that same desire, same tenacity to do that for the nurses, to keep us so we can continue what we're doing and do that for all of my colleagues throughout the county. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, come on down, whoever's next.
Evening, Commissioners, Administrator Dill, Corporation Counsel Billard. My name is Mary Campbell. I work for Washtenaw County. I do not live in Washtenaw County, and I am the president of ASME's Local 2733. So back in July, the Commissioners approved a 32% increase for yourselves that goes into effect January 1st, 2025 for the course of the next 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. So please forgive me if I'm wrong, which is equivalent to an 8% increase for each year, along with more than a 30% plus increase for the next 3 years for Administrator Dill. The BOC tonight is tasked with the second reading of approving the next 4 years budget, and it's imperative that enough funds be allocated to provide the fair compensation for all of our hardworking staff, not just the upper echelon. Washtenaw County workers are not asking for unreasonable compensation for their hard work. They prove their commitment and significant contribution to the services the county provides for its residents on a daily basis. You need to prioritize the well-being of the rest of the county's employees with the fair wages they deserve, the same way you prioritized yourselves along with the upper echelon you approved back in July. 2733 will more than likely not have a signed contract come January 1st, 2024. I do not see AFSCME 2733 accepting what we have seen the employer propose to the other locals. We are still dealing with trying to get through non-economics and the pushback we are getting from the employer on what are very reasonable asks. On another note, we are extremely surprised by the purchase of a $400,000 RV for the commissioners to do community outreach and the additional cost to have it renovated, wrapped, and stored. How exactly is this RV supposed to be used for the community outreach? And how do you explain to your constituents when you roll up in this vehicle like royalty? I'm all about helping those in need and would really like to know how you can explain spending almost $500,000 for this. I was here at another board meeting when the board talked about what the responsibilities the county has for its constituents and what responsibilities the surrounding municipalities and cities have, as well as if maybe the county was overextending itself more than they should. I know the BOC is responsible for the employees who work for Washtenaw County government, as we are for the services provided for your constituents. We implore you to keep that in mind when allocating funds for the raises for the next 4 years. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. All right, come on down.
Hi, Nancy Hine, resident of Ypsilanti City, and also the president of Local 3052. So here we are again to bring to your attention how inadequately our union workers are getting paid here at the county. Our Local 3052 is in active negotiations, and I swear that administration must sit in their negotiating team meetings and try to figure out the least amount that they will offer their union employees. Then when we counter their paltry offer, we hear words such as, well, the county can't sustain that. Or we hear, we don't think the right people are sitting across the table from us. Maybe we should have your members sit down individually with HR so we can talk to them about the offer. So this is as it relates to moving to the MAG salary table that is so very flawed at this point that half of our members would be giving concessions if they moved to this. Well, 50% of our members are currently getting longevity. Think about the 30% raise for county administrator plus the golden parachute. $400,000 for a brand new RV for board outreach that can't be stored inside because there's no county space to house it. Huge raises for the Board of Commissioners yourself, huge raises for certain department heads. Now, I know you're going to say the RV was purchased with ARPA funds. Well, who's going to drive it? Maybe some new staff are being hired to help with that. Also think about the 14 million plus inflow that's coming in from the state for the general fund being funneled through the PIHP and CMH for the CMH deficit elimination from 2018. Also, I believe there's going to be a 4% increase in revenue sharing from the state. There's going to be a potential surplus savings fund balance and marijuana money, et cetera, et cetera. Washtenaw County received the most from the state in last year. Also think about how county employees had to sell themselves out in order to get that lump sums last year because they had to pay rent, house notes, utility bills, pay for broken water heaters, et cetera, buy groceries for their and daycare for their families. Happy holidays and solidarity.
Happy holidays. All right, next person, come on down.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Pro. I live in Ann Arbor. I've come before you repeatedly. I am concerned, obviously, about the plight of the homeless community as we go into the cold weather. I know that you made changes. The programs that I think you put in place are not sufficient. They are a step in the right direction, but I just would like to propose that the county repurpose the Learning Resource Center as it has done in the past. And I know, obviously that all these personnel issues are important and costly. And I'm, I certainly want to see well-paid county employees, but I think the Learning Resource Center could be repurposed for that until, let's just say, April 1st at fairly low cost. I'd be happy to work with anybody on trying to figure out where to get personnel and I think it would be, I think we would be willing to do some volunteering as the men's rotating shelter also relies on volunteers. And then I further want to say that it come April 1st, under any circumstances, all these people are going to be out in the cold. I know the weather amnesty program at Purple House, we often have extended it into April because the nights are still quite cold. So I would really like to see attention paid in between now and April 1st to getting an emergency shelter, one that is not you don't have to apply for a bed and wait forever in a day. And whether that's an IPSI or not, is not, I think just have to make sure that rather large population in IPSI that is houseless has transportation to the shelter. So thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.
Good evening. I'm Shannon See. I do not live in the county. I work for the lovely county of Washtenaw, and I'm the 2733 unit chair for Unit B. We're back here again because our contract negotiations were in non-economics. We're going to get an economic package soon. We know it'll resemble everyone else's economic packages. That's been par for the course. I want to throw some other numbers out at you. Watched the local news the other night. With the rate of inflation, every single necessity a person has gone up. Electricity, gas in your car, gas in your home, groceries. The average person now needs $11,400 more than they needed 2.5 years ago to survive. Will that be in our raises? Because these people back here with the homeless coalition, I work at the shelter 3 nights a week because I can't pay my gas bill and feed my children at the same time working for Washtenaw County. But we can take the lowest paid person who's now going to come up to the 20, thank you for that, and pay the administration 8 times. Administration gets raises. Department heads get raises. Now it is time to give the employees who hold all of those department heads up, all of the administration up. We've been told by multiple people on the board and administration, we thank you for what you do because without you, no pun intended, you don't look good. Department heads look good when their department runs right, not just because of their leadership and not just because of the way they run their department, but because of all these people who do all the work to make that department run. We're a pyramid and we're holding up everybody and it hurts. It's painful. We're not sitting down for 2%, so don't expect our contract to be signed. Don't expect our units to TA a 2% raise. We've been getting that for years. It's not enough. It's not cutting it anymore. We're finding money where we can for this pet project and this pet project because it's political and I promise my constituents this. Well, let me tell you, your constituents won't have anything if all of us are gone. We're losing people left and right because they can make more money even at the bottom of the scale in the next county over. We're all leaving. Stop the exodus by giving people the pay they deserve in the lowest levels of the county first. My time's not up, but I got nothing else because we're just going to get the same lip service in response to public comment that we've gotten at every single meeting. You guys hold the purse strings. It's time to allocate and move more money specifically for these raises that we're asking for.
All right, next person, come on down.
Hi, my name is Shannon Gron. I work for Washtenaw County Front of the Court. I do not live in Washtenaw County any longer. I can no longer afford to live in Washtenaw County. Excuse me. I just wanted to, yes, we need more money. We can't get people hired because we can't pay. We don't have benefits. We, for example, work from home. The court doesn't have that. So we're losing to other counties that can pay more and have work from home and flexibility that we don't offer. We can't fill. So just like my coworkers have said, you have all these people helping because we're not taking our lunches. We're not taking our breaks. We're working short staffed every day. We're carrying double and triple caseloads because we're not hiring. They're refusing to post the positions. There's a position that's been open for 4 years over at the front of the court that still they're refusing to post. This has to come to the end. We need help from you guys to help us, and we're not getting it. We're slowly getting it. Thank you, Commissioner. We're slowly getting it, but we need everybody on board to help everyone that helps the county stay afloat. They see you guys as the public figure, yes, but it's not you guys that deal with the customers every day coming in. It's not you guys that have to deal with the people we're being screamed and yelled at because we can't keep up. You guys aren't. If we could make more money, you would be able to keep people here in Washtenaw County. People wouldn't be leaving to go to other counties. They would want to stay here. They wouldn't want to leave to go to another county. You very rarely now have people that are here for 20 years and ready to retire. They're here 3 or 4 years and finding a better job at another county. And then you have people that want to promote within the county because they truly believe that they want to be within the county, and they're denied that promotion. They bring somebody from the outside in. There's some issues going on, and we need your help, board, big time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go, so camera right. Hello, my name is Samuel Hayes. I work at Washtenaw County Friend of the Court, and I live in Ypsilanti, Michigan. I didn't really think of many things to say today. Some of my companions are going to mention the RV, and I found out about it a couple days ago. I told myself I wouldn't say anything about it, but then it appears that the board had the audacity to park it in front of the very building that we were going to bandy about whether we were going to give $500,000 to this entity or the next entity. And I don't mean to be too dire, but I think if this body is going to deny anybody the $500,000, I think there needs to be a full and very clear accounting on why that RV was purchased, why so much money was spent on it, what further money is going to be spent on it, and what exactly its purpose is, because this body is talking about housing families through the winter. People are going to die if they don't get in from out of the cold. And there's an RV that someone told me cost 8 families being able to have a place to live for 3 months over the winter. So I just would really like it to make sense. I think everybody here would like this to make sense. And I think even though I come from the union perspective and others come from different perspectives, I think we're all part of the same escalating issue. I think whether we're talking about cultural icons being removed and high rises put in, whether we're talking about low wages in Ypsilanti, if we're talking about the homeless situation, the unhoused situation being stretched out past what makes sense, I think all of these issues kind of feed into each other. When I can't afford to live in Ann Arbor, I go to Ypsilanti where the rent's cheap. The people who could afford that place, assuming Ypsilanti is at 100% occupancy, now don't have a place to live. And now where do they go? They get pushed out of the county. Now they're not paying this body any money. Now they're not benefiting Washtenaw County anymore, this prestigious county that's supposed to be a model county for the state. Or at least I've heard 1 or 2 of you mention that about many of your policies that you have all decided to implement to be a model for other counties in the state. So please don't let this be a model for the state that we had $500,000. We could have put 8 families up for 3 months over the winter, but instead we got an RV. Unless, of course, you're about to make that RV make a whole lot of sense, because we're talking about lives. We're talking about families. We're talking about people's futures here. So please, thank you again, this body, for the time that they spend and the work that you do for being financially responsible for the county. And y'all always know how to find me if there's any kind of service I can do for you, as small as I may be. And thank you again for your time.
All right, next person, come on down.
Hello, my name is Kavon Hamad, and I've lived in Ann Arbor for 22 years, as long as I've been alive. And I want to reiterate, as my peers have, that like others, I've been going to Pinball Pets since I was a child, since middle school. And Pinball Pets has provided a safe space for me and my friends and all of Ann Arbor's youth. And I feel like the destruction of yet another space, another third space, is devastating for Ann Arbor. You know, I've encouraged people to come to Ann Arbor just because of the fact that Ann Arbor as a city provides so many opportunities for students, for young people to go out and, you know, actually have fun. You know, it's not like a town where everything closes at 5 p.m. And, you know, I feel like just Pinball Pets being torn down just for more expensive housing is not the right solution. There's no, you know, we're losing, again, another landmark that has been important for Ann Arbor for decades. And I urge you to reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next person, come on down. Or I can turn to our friends online. Huh? Oh, a stranger. I don't know who the stranger is. Uh-oh. Looks like trouble.
Maybe a little bit, but good evening, Chair, Commissioners, Administrator. My name is Felicia Brabeck. I live in Pittsfield Township, and I'm happy to be back. It's great to be back here. It's been really interesting listening to the conversation today on the public comment. I'm coming to advocate for a different reason, but I think very important to the health and wellness of this organization, and that's paid family leave. And the last, when I got to sit where you all are, that was the very last resolution that I wrote. I actually found it on my computer today. And I'm grateful to then Commissioner Morgan for offering it with me, and grateful for you all for considering it. So here's what we know. Paid family leave impacts our employees. We have greater job satisfaction. Our employees are in less financial distress, which then leads to greater retention for the organization. To me, this just makes great sense. We have support for folks' mental health and physical health. And the other major issue is that it makes Washtenaw County that much more competitive to our other organizations in the area that are able to pull our amazing workers from the county to their organizations because of a lack of a policy of this sort. So I'm grateful to you all for your consideration of it. You all should have a fact sheet from Family Values at Work. Yep. And so you all have that. Please take a look at this. It really highlights some of the benefits of being able to have a policy like this. I'm always happy to be a resource if I can. We are also working at having these kinds of policies at the state level too, but that takes a lot longer and you all can do something much faster. And so I am grateful to you all again, as I said, for your consideration and happy to see all of you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right, anybody else in the room? No, okay. Going once. We're standing room only. We have people outside that'd like to come give public comments. Is that... okay.
Hello. Thank y'all for speaking. Thank y'all for being here. My name is Magnus The Entertainer of Ann Arbor, Michigan. I have a very important question for all of y'all. So after April 1st, where is everyone to go? Okay. So what we're asking y'all today is to consider maybe funding the Learning Resource Center, like you did during the pandemic, you know, so people don't have to go back out there. And let's just say it's not like it was before where we can probably people will probably freeze to death. So this is more like I would say like a dire special request. If there's anything anybody can do, we ask that you do it. Right now, it's not as cold as it's going to be, and it's hard enough. I myself, some nights I go and stay in the warming center. It's overwhelmed. okay? And it's rather short-staffed too. So we ask that you all somehow, maybe supply a budget where we can pay professionals to come and oversee these places, because even the staff members are frustrated. Their morale is starting to go down. And I'm saying this because I'm there to see it. So if anyone can do anything, we ask that make that the first thing y'all think about or move on, is where do people go after the first? So thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Good evening. I'm Bob King. I'm a longtime resident of Washtenaw County. And I wasn't going to speak, honestly, but when I listen to these workers and I hear what terrible offers are being made at the bargaining table, I hope you all realize you're all Democrats. You're supposed to be fighting for working people. You're supposed to be standing up for working people. You know what the UAW did. You know what our great president, Shawn Fain, and how he stood up over and over again and said, you corporate executives are getting huge bonuses and huge payment. You're not giving it to the workers. And it took a strike of the UAW to get those workers a fair rate of pay. You see that with the Teamsters and UPS. You see it with the Writers Union. You see it with the Actors Union. You see it all across this country. Workers are fed up with being left at the bottom of the totem pole and not being dealt fairly with. I hope that you stand up to the morals you say you stand for. Every one of you has said you care about working people, working families. A 2% raise for members of your staff that work here full time, that stood up during the COVID, that to me is outrageous. And I want you to know I'm here. I'm going to report back to Shawn Fain. I'm going to report back to Margaret Mock of what Democrats stood up for workers and what Democrats refused to. You don't deserve to call yourself a Democrat when you're offering workers a 2% raise, when you got 30% or 8% per year. You all got a substantial raise, which I think that commissioners deserve. But it is wrong if you get it for yourself. You don't make sure the workers that make this county run get the same. Thank you.
Could you state your city or township? You left that part out. Yeah, well, Bryce will put you down as Ann Arbor. Just, yeah, okay. Go ahead. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Abigail Alman. I live in Pittsfield Township. I work for Washtenaw County Community Mental Health. I work in the Access Department. I also am a member of ASME 2733 Unit A. I am on the contract negotiation team as well. I'm here to echo the voices of not only, amazing causes being represented here today, but also echo everything that has been said by my union members as well. We know the budget is getting looked at tonight. We have been working and coming to the table with ideas to make this county a more ideal place to work. I can speak from the community mental health lens as well, that the continuation of being short-staffed has dire consequences for our community, but also has dire consequences for our clients, the most vulnerable people in society. We have an honor and we have an obligation to protect our community and our most vulnerable members. And I think it's, I also was not going to say anything about the RV either, but I am really struggling. When I see that beautiful piece of machinery out there, I think of my coworkers, I think of my clients who, continue to come in front of this board and come in front of other boards in the community, and frankly, get paid lip service and get, a crappy shake of the deal. So I echo once again my AFSCME and Michigan Nurses Union here today in finalizing a budget that makes sense for workers. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room for public comment?
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Danny Hoover. I'm speaking as myself.
I'm not representing Washtenaw County or Washtenaw County Community Mental Health. I am a resident of the city of Milan, and I work for, Washtenaw County Community Mental Health, and have since 2013. I went from a case manager to now supervisor, and I currently supervise 7 people. And one of the things I hear about a lot when I take new team members out on visits is we've got a new case manager again, and it just doesn't feel good. With adequate case managers, we would be able to help people obtain bed rails and access food resources and apply for Medicaid and, jobs and stuff like that. And it's just a lot. As the supervisor, I have 7 people plus 2 temporary people because another supervisor moved on, so they dispersed the team. I have an intern, I have a team member that is out on leave, and I assigned all of their cases to me, and I'm covering half. I don't have time to be a supervisor, and I'd really like to be. And I think it is really important for the commissioners and anyone else who's hearing this to think about fair wages and seniority and things like that for contracts. And then lastly, regarding housing, I don't know all the issues, but I'll tell a little bit about what I do know. Not to toot my own horn, but Friday mornings I volunteer at the St. Andrew's breakfast program. It's an Episcopal church here in town. They do a breakfast 365 days a year, 7:30, 8:30. It's wonderful. I'm there Friday mornings. That's where you need to be when you want to talk to people before you make decisions about shelter and spending money on RVs and things like that. I remember one lady, I was handing her her coffee and she said, I wasn't cold last night. And it did something to my heart. And I really think you need to think about those sort of things for funding for people who are homeless. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Commission. Last time I spoke, someone said I sounded scripted, so I didn't write anything this time. Has anyone here put forward a resolution for a ceasefire? Okay, you should do that probably. So there's a genocide happening. If you've heard, I don't know if you've heard, there's a genocide happening and our money is going to fund it. And you all have a very unique power among Washtenaw County residents to help stop that from happening. I'm proud of the Ypsilanti City Council that bravely passed a resolution for a ceasefire just last night. We had probably the longest public comment in Ypsilanti history, my guess, about 4 hours and 45 minutes of public comment, 95 comments, almost all of them in support of a ceasefire resolution. The future is watching what you do right now. You are supposed to be the moral leaders of our county. So this is the very least you can do. All these things are connected. So much of our money, I should have looked it up, but it's millions and millions of dollars of our taxpayer money that's going to build bombs to destroy entire families and murder children in the Middle East indiscriminately with no checks. And that is money that could be used to pay all these beautiful people, for instance. It is money that could be used to build a homeless shelter in Ypsilanti, like we have been demanding. It is money that could be used to staff the Learning Resource Center, which you should do. Today is your opportunity to put more money into the housing fund, as I understand it. Sorry, I don't understand the exact details, but these are where our tax dollars should be going, not to not to Israel, and not to the police. One of the things that happened last night in Ipsy was, and there's ample video evidence of it, was that your sheriffs, along with YPD, along with EMUPD, came into a peaceful protest outside City Council and got violent, escalated with the crowd. There's a lot of evidence of this. So this whole policing system, just like our foreign policy and our domestic policy when it comes to state violence, are looking more and more similar, and it's time to end them.
Thank
immediately.
you. Your time's up.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Kaa, and I live in Ipsy City. I live at a house of hospitality in Ipsy called Hospitality House. I work at Ground Cover News, and I've worked at various grassroots homeless shelters over the past 5 years in this community. I think a lot of you were at an event that happened 2 or 3 weeks ago called the State of Homelessness. It was hosted by Washtenaw Housing Alliance. If you were there, you saw that the state of homelessness is bad. It's really bad in our community. We need a lot more housing and we need a lot more shelter to just get to kind of this very, like the bare minimum to give people access to shelter and housing in our community. And so there are a lot of people here tonight for various reasons. I think it's shelter now, ceasefire now, and pay our union brothers and sisters more right now. And those are all money things, right? There's a problem with the budget. People are really upset with what the decisions that you're making. And we know it's getting approved tonight. And so I just want you to consider that, but like the people are taking time out of their Wednesday, their nights. They've been coming this whole season or whatever you call it, sessions. We're here in August, September, October, November, telling you that there's a problem with the way you're spending money and we're trying to get ahead of it. And it's still the nth hour that it's not happening the way that your constituents want the money to be spent. So for shelter now, that's what I'm here kind of speaking for. We just want 2 things to happen tonight. We have a lot of other demands. We've been talking about them. It's shelter before spring, stop the sweeps, temporary shelter immediately, and shelters with decision-making and veto power in the creation of homeless individuals. But tonight, it's 2 things. It's open the Learning Resource Center as soon as possible, the way it was during COVID. You guys own the property is owned by the county. It is a great space to shelter people. There's divisions. It can be women. It can be families. It can be co-ed, it can be whatever you want. Volunteers could run it. There are a lot of other volunteer shelters in the area. People would mobilize to do that. It's just not that expensive. The other thing is to add money to start planning for a shelter for April 1st. This is something we've saying over and over again. There's no plan for April 1st. Everyone has to camp, or they have to stay at Delonis, which gets jam-packed and is traumatic and violent and is impacting everybody in this room, the conditions that are there, because the objective number of beds is not one that people are choosing to use because it's so terrible, the conditions. 2 things. Learning Resource Center immediately, money for a shelter before spring. We will continue to come and urge you to do this. We will put homelessness in your face so you don't forget about it, that the decisions you make tonight, they will have impacts for months to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room for public comment?
Good evening, everyone. Ian Robinson. I'm a resident of Ann Arbor, president of the Huron Valley Area Labor Federation. I sent you all a letter from our federation on Tuesday morning expressing our dismay about the way in which you're offering 2% raises to these frontline workers that have worked so hard under such challenging conditions, and at the same time providing the kind of high increases that have already been talked about by Bob and by others. I mean, I understand we've been through a lot of years of neoliberalism. I understand that we have got used to gross inequalities between the way we pay people at the top and the bottom, that's become normalized. It's time for that norm to change. That norm is obsolete. That norm is unacceptable. And you, as Bob pointed out, all Democrats, you know, you have to show the way, or you know, we have to find another way of making this society operate in accordance with some basic principles of fairness. Well, I don't know. It shouldn't even be necessary to be here. I'm upset that we do need to be here, but clearly we do. And if we have to keep coming back, we damn well will. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room for public comment? Or in the hallway? Anybody in the hallway for public comment? They can hear me in the hallway, right? Yes, they can. Okay, is anybody coming? Nope. All right, time for our friends online. Ashley, who do we have online?
Chair, at this point, we do not have any hands raised.
Oh. Okay, well, last call going once, twice, 3 times. Okay, well, I'm closing public comment. Before I turn to my fellow commissioners to respond to public comment, I just want to say for our friends that came to speak on behalf of Pinball Pets, I'd share a fun fact. Not at the Pinball Pets here in Ann Arbor, but at the Pinball Pets in East Lansing is where I had my first date with my wife in high school. So, you know, Pinball Pets has a special place in my heart and is very significant. So I understand the desire to make sure that it remains in Ann Arbor. Commissioner LaBar raised his hand first, and then no one else has. You gotta get in the queue. Go ahead, Commissioner LaBar.
Thanks, Chair. I too have experience with Pinball Pets as a teen. It is one of the instances where I'm very grateful I'm not on Ann Arbor City Council. I don't begrudge them any of the zoning decisions they make, but I don't want anyone who spoke here tonight on Pinball Pets to think that the county has that zoning authority. I won't go further into it other than to say, as an Ann Arbor resident, somebody born here and raised here, I hope Pinball Pets stays here in some iteration. I don't know what that looks like. Quickly to some of the comments about the negotiations on some of our local contracts. I can't speak for anybody else at this table, but I can certainly speak based on years of serving with them that I think not only are there folks here, 9 of us who do take pride in being Democrats and progressives and liberals and those things. There are reasons for those principles, primarily in the context of public service. When you have a strong unionized workforce with good benefits and with an incentive to join an organization, to provide services, to do, you know, the nuts and bolts of civil service, there's a great benefit to the organization and to the residents. I would say, as I said in a conversation with Bob King last week, having a unified ask to the board in terms of what are the important things in those contracts, what are the specifics you're asking for, those are very helpful. I don't know anyone who is sitting at this table that wouldn't love to get to an affirmative answer that everyone agrees is fair, decent, respects process, and above all, respects the work you all do. And I say this as somebody whose father is a retiree from the county. It certainly shaped my life growing up. I get it, and I'm hopeful that we can do that. I will say there have been some comments tonight about the mobile services unit or the RV. And all I would ask in that context is many of the criticisms we received as a body during COVID dealt with the accessibility of county services, the approachability of those services from a physical infrastructure perspective, and candidly, a lack of trust in the community for county services, access to them, and fairness in getting them. One of the responses to that was the mobile services unit. The first public presentation on it actually, I believe, was not at the time our colleague, but our soon-to-be colleague, Commissioner Sanders, who spoke about its purpose and its uses. And so I take absolutely what you're saying about prioritizing things and looking at a capital expense that stands in contrast or stands along with other uses of those dollars. But I would say this, the genesis of that allocation was to deal with some of those real world issues that we were getting particularly in communities of color and rural communities in Washtenaw County, where they said, you're not hearing us, you're not listening, and you're not making these things accessible. So I take your point, but I would ask you to please consider, in the context of all these discussions, that was the purpose there. And I'm hopeful it will work. Again, I appreciate everybody coming here tonight. I appreciate the comments. They don't fall on deaf ears. If I could give everyone the answer they wanted, I would certainly do so. I know I can't, and I won't, pretend I can. But the aggregate adds up. It is very helpful, and I'm hopeful about those contracts in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Somerville, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll try to keep my notes in order because there were a lot of different comments made. I want to thank Representative Brabeck for coming and advocating in favor of the paid family leave policy. I really hope that as a state we get there, but I'm glad to see that there's something before us tonight to change how we do things for the county. I also wanted to comment on the issue of that our employees are facing in terms of negotiations and wages. And I just want to, I know, we say a lot here in response to your public comment, but I do mean it when I say I want you to be paid a fair and decent wage, and a wage that actually shows the value of the work that you provide all of the residents here. And I do, I hold that up in conversations that I have when we talk about these things, both, in smaller meetings with administration and just one-on-one with other commissioners. So it is something that I do bring up regularly. And just generally, I just think that people should be able to do their job without being stressed out about being able to pay their bills, because we all do better when we're not worried about basic needs being met. So I want to make sure that that is said, and I support you wholeheartly in trying to get more, because you deserve more. With respect to housing, we've had a lot of conversations at this table this year. We've thrown a lot of money at this issue, and we also know that throwing money alone at the housing crisis is also not going to get us the results that we want. We need to make sure that we have full capacity in our staff to provide the human services support that are needed to even get some of the dollars that we've recently allocated out. I'm really proud of some of the amendments that were made to hopefully help get those resources out. We've just allocated over $2 million in a variation of ways to help stabilize the current crisis, and in particular, really focus on the people who are currently unhoused to get them back stabilized and into housing in a variety of ways. Ways that aren't just lighting money on fire by hoteling people, because that costs a lot of money. We're looking at new ways to try to get people in housing with wraparound services, whether it's holding master leases. But again, we just approved that funding. We still need to actually implement the program. And I understand that that's not good enough for now because we have people who need shelter now. I do support efforts to open county space to do that. I don't know. Someone else mentioned the capacity issues. We do have capacity issues. We did approve money for the Shelter Association to help with the capacity issues. We know that it's unsafe when our overnight shelters don't have the staff capacity to handle some of the situations that they're dealing with. So we are helping with that. And that is also one of the considerations that we have to think about when we open more shelter space. So we're trying to keep all that in mind while also stabilizing. And I think, the goal is to use a variety of different spaces to keep people housed and not have to rely on sheltering, because it's becoming really challenging to continue sheltering people in hotels. Sorry, I minced my words there. I I did offer a suggested amendment change to continue ongoing funding to increase it for housing and homelessness. We are only going, moving forward with 460,000 ongoing, but we allocated over 2 million for next year. So I'm hoping that at some point next year, we can find more money to allocate in 25 and 26 and 27. I will keep fighting for that. What else am I missing? And the other thing, I know that we've had a few comments, and I just want to say that my personal beliefs, I don't support war, period. I don't support the bombing of innocent civilians. I do support a ceasefire. And I also want to say that as elected officials and community members, it's also our responsibility to make sure that our neighbors here, our Arab neighbors, and our Jewish neighbors feel safe in our community. That's really important to me. I grew up as a teenager in a post 9/11 world as somebody of Middle Eastern descent, and I'm really worried about the direction not just our community in Washtenaw County is going, but our country and not sticking up for our neighbors against hate. So I really do hope that as we call for things, condemning violence and bombing of innocent people in Palestine, that we can also protect our neighbors here in Washtenaw County. Thank you.
Thank you. You also want to respond? Commissioner Beeman.
Thank you, Chair. And apologies, I'm gonna probably mince my words a little bit more than Commissioner Somerville as I'm ill and masked. And my voice is going. Quick note, I also love Pinball Pets, and as was mentioned by Commissioner LaBarre, I do not envy Ann Arbor City Council. It is a space that we do not intervene in local zoning, much to the chagrin of some of my residents when issues come around other things such as gravel pits. I've said it before, and as my colleagues have said here at this table, we are you, our workers. That's who we are. We don't do anything except provide services. And to everyone's point tonight, you cannot provide the best service when you're worried about so many other things, when you're worried about caseloads because we can't hire enough people, when you're worried about how you're going to pay your gas bill or how you're going to be able to pick up your child from school or childcare because you're running late because you've been working more hours than you should be, etc. I hear it. I'm here to be an advocate for you because you do deserve, you are our backbone, you are our services, you are every touch point to our residents, to our community. That is you. In terms of the housing and homelessness, we do hear you. We know that there's a crisis. I will just say, I am so excited to have a new leader of OCED. That has been a gaping hole in our team for far too long. And that is a person, a leader who can help in this space, who can find money. I had a wonderful relationship with our last OCD leader, and that's what we were doing, especially in areas that are quote unquote designated rural, which is a lot more of Washtenaw County than you would think. Because we have issues with affordable housing there, and we can house people in other places, not just downtown Ann Arbor, not just Ypsilanti City. There are other areas that we can develop and we can house people and keep people warm. So I just want to iterate that we have a new leader. I'm really excited about where we can go and the dollars that we can chase when we have a full team, when we get back up to speed, what we can do, the impact that we can make. I'm just going to end with a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt in response to what's happening in the Middle East. No one won the last war, and no one will win the next war.
All right, Commissioner Robbie, and then Commissioner Scott after.
All right, thank you, Chair. Appreciate it. I want to start by thanking everybody who came out today to, speak to us and share, what you're going through. I think, I'm glad to see that our board meetings have been well attended by members of the public for the last several months. And that we've heard from so many people, not just on the shelter issue, not just from our employees who have been here to several meetings to advocate to us, but to so many others. This is how democracy functions. And we are responsive to you. We have to listen to you. And we've made several decisions based on things that we've heard here at these meetings. So I want to just tell you how impactful the words that you share here are. I want to start because the first comment was about Pinball Pets. I want to start with that too. Pinball Pets getting a lot of love tonight, clearly from the commissioners. It's a very special place to all of us that grew up in Ann Arbor, as I did, and spent a lot of time there. And you're right to point to the fact that it's a place where you can have, where you can be as somebody who's under 21 who doesn't drink, doesn't use, substances. You can go to Pinball Pets and, have a safe place. And that was definitely, something that I know a lot of my peers, enjoyed. And what you pointed out at the beginning is that it's not unique to Pinball Pets. And I'm glad that you mentioned it in the context of our cultural assets in our community, beyond just that one facility. There's so many other businesses, and I feel like, and in buildings too, buildings and businesses. And I do want to say something that I've said multiple times when it comes to a lot of developments, especially recently. I noticed that oftentimes the businesses, I don't know that this applies to Pinball Pets necessarily. I don't know who owns Pinball Pets, but a lot of the businesses that get displaced are businesses that are owned by people of color. And, as we see that continue in our community, I think it's a really bad trend and something that we need to solve. But it speaks to a larger issue for me, which is, it speaks to frankly, to the gentrification of our community. And what we've seen over the years, again, I'm 35 now, I've lived in Ann Arbor my whole life, and to see our community be essentially gentrified, we need to end that. Yes, it's shelter now, but in the context of shelter now, we need to make sure that Ann Arbor isn't becoming a country club for the rich. This isn't an exclusive community and a gated community, but that's what it's becoming. And every time you build $1 million condo, every time you build luxury high rises with, all these crazy amenities that nobody actually uses and charge $2,500 for a bed, that is gentrification. That is displacement of businesses, local businesses, businesses that are run by people of color, businesses that are owned by people of color, homes that are owned by people of color, homes that are owned by working class people. We are displacing our community and making it into a country club. And that gentrification should not continue. And so the Pinball Pets issue speaks to me, a larger issue in our community of who do we want to be when we look at ourselves in the mirror? Do we want to be like every other community? Do we want to have the CVS and Walgreens on every corner, or do we want to be a unique community where people actually want to come and be part of this community and share in this experience and create culture together? And that to me is directly related. I'm glad that there were so many speakers who spoke to the connections between each of the issues that were brought up tonight. And I believe Ian referenced the neoliberal society that we all live in, which is, I believe, hits the nail on the head to a lot of the issues that we're facing. And when we talk about gentrification, the first thing that I think of is colonization. Gentrification is a microcosm of colonization, something that's been tried for generations and generations and decades to exploit people, predominantly people of color, and take resources from them for those that are more well off. And when we look at, what we're facing here with housing in our community, and we look at the salaries issue that's coming forward, to me, those two are interconnected. And we heard from so many speakers that were like, yo, I can't even live in Washtenaw County on these salaries. That is sad. That's sad that we are one of the largest employers in this county and our employees can't even live here. But I will say, to me, it's not just salaries. And I've said this at many other meetings, and I'll keep saying it even after negotiations are done. We need to bring our pension back in Washtenaw County. That was something. That was something that was a huge asset to our employees. And it's something that we often forget about because I'm appreciative that Commissioner LeVar brought up his father who worked for the county. There are so many county employees in our community that were under that system who are retired, because we used to be, frankly, we used to be a family, right? And you would take care of members of your family past the time that they leave your doors. Because when we're in our retirement, we're at our most vulnerable. And when people put in years of service in this community, sometimes putting their lives on the line for our residents, they deserve to retire with dignity. So it is about salary. It's about making sure the people who work here now get paid an honest wage, a decent wage, a wage where they can live in our community, a wage that has dignity associated with it. But it's also about retirement. By the way, we also used to give retiree health care. We don't do that anymore. And we should bring that back as well. And I know a lot of these things have a big price tag to them. And I know a lot of them were gotten rid of, frankly, under the Snyder regime, because there was a lot of things that the state did to pressure local communities to do that. But it was wrong. It was morally wrong. It was financially wrong, frankly. And it was financially wrong too, because what we ultimately did is we took a fund that was healthy and functioning, and we took a bunch of people off of it, and we said, no, we're not going to put future employees in it. We're not going to have them pay into the fund to help support those that are retiring on an ongoing basis. But we have to think about our employees, not just during the time that they're with us, but we have to think about them through retirement too. We are a family, and if we truly are a family, we have to think of our employees through when they leave the county and take care of them in their retirement so they can retire with dignity after a life of service to the residents of Washtenaw County. I believe that our residents would want that for the people that serve them. I believe that they would want to pay. I believe that they would be embarrassed to know what salaries you make. I believe that they would be embarrassed to know the proposals that you're getting. I believe that they would want you to be able to retire with dignity, with a pension, and with retiree health care. And I think that we need to have those conversations about bringing those things back. So I want to thank all of you for coming forward tonight and speaking and advocating and for the strength of your union. That's really important, because that's worth an applause. So keep on fighting, keep on advocating, keep coming back to our meetings, and frankly, keep coming back even after the contract is done. We need to see you here. We need you to hold us accountable. We work for you at the end of the day, and we need to hear from you. One last thing I want to say, because I think Commissioner Somerville spoke to it very well. And I think we, haven't really had the conversation at this table at all. And it's something that I've been, somewhat, frankly, hesitant to talk about. But I have not felt like this since 9/11, frankly. As my father's North African from Algeria, immigrated to the United States. And during 9/11, people who had the same name as me, people who were of Middle Eastern and North African descent, were people even in our community disappeared. Windows of stores were broken, people were harassed and attacked in the street, people were killed. And we were seen as subhuman. And I think what I feel now is very similar to that. If leaders in our country and across the world are willing to call Palestinians who are innocent animals, if they are willing to treat people like animals, worse than animals, by denying them food, water, and bombing their homes, and by saying that they're animals. And the line that you make between those innocent people, to me, some of those that are dying, some of those that are starving, some of those whose homes are being destroyed, they share my name. If you are willing to call them animals, what is to stop you from calling me an animal? Why is it controversial to say that war is bad? Why is it controversial to say we should not level entire communities to the ground where innocent people live? Why is it controversial to say children should not die? That should not be controversial. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Scott.
Thanks, Chair. I have a list. One, Pinball Pete's. I have a 16-year-old who often is at Pinball Pete's, and I appreciate that it's there for him. I wish it was something I had jurisdiction over here at the county, so I would be assured he was still going to be hanging out someplace that was not doing something untoward, as 16-year-old boys are often want to do. I feel safe with him there. So I will make sure that I talk with my colleagues in Ann Arbor about Pinball Pete's, and we'll see what we can do, because I agree it's a nice resource for the community. Number 2 on my list is talking about the mobile supports initiative and what you guys are calling the mobile home. I understand the disconnect with thinking about the fact that we have this big mobile home out there with everything that's happening and that you're talking about. But I want to just highlight the fact that it is a support services initiative, SSI. And we were at a housing equity conference this past Friday that the county had. And I had a whole bunch of ideas after listening to people come and talk to us about some of the housing issues that they had, particularly from some people who do not want to be in congregate settings, who prefer, they were there at the meeting telling us how they prefer to be in their car, where they don't want to be in those settings. And we talked about how having a facility for people to shower, for people to get health care, for people whose batteries die who are doing that, they get a jump for their battery. And I was like, I mean, I wrote down a whole list of things that people were talking about, left the conference, ran into my colleague, Commissioner Sanders, when I was leaving, and I said, these are all the things. Oh my gosh, we need to start thinking about this. And she said, these are exactly the things that our mobile support services initiative can do. So I understand that it looks like this huge RV, but it is it is not so we can go on the road and hang out in an RV. It is to help people in the community and meet them where they're at. It is truly meant to be meeting people where they are. I understand the disconnect, but maybe some clarification about what that RV is going to be doing in our community will help understand some of that. 2.5 on my list, because I forgot it, and so I had to add it in, is I want to lift up the family leave policy that we'll have on the agenda tonight. I am hopeful it will be passed. I am very excited about it. I think it does do a lot to address gender equity in the workplace. I think it is the first step that we have for family leave. I would like to see our future iterations of this policy include things for non-primary caregivers as well, because the policy right now gives leave for primary caregivers. But I think it would be nice for second parent, if there is a second parent involved, to be able to have time off to spend with that family member as well. And that's the next iteration I will be pushing for in the family leave policy. Glad that we've got what we've got, but I'm always looking for something more. Finally, let me talk briefly about the union contracts. I'm looking at myself in the thing. I can't take myself seriously with this thing on my head, but what I'm going to say is very serious. I want to thank you to everybody who came out and talked to us tonight. I saw some of my fellow nurses here this evening. I want to thank you. You are the backbone of our community. I'm not just saying that because I'm a nurse too, but what you do in the public health department, I couldn't do. My headband is off to you all because you are taking care of this community in a very real way. Nurses, wherever we are taking care of people at the most vulnerable points of their life. Some people feel vulnerable when they're getting a shot and an immunization, and we are there
to encourage you and calm you down and let you know you're doing the right thing. You are sometimes at the health department because you are there as a new parent getting help. Like, we are there for you, and absolutely, I believe that you should be compensated fairly for the work that you're doing. I want to note that when you're right, you came up here and talked about the raise that commissioners have scheduled for themselves to get in 2024. I did not vote for that raise. When I started and I ran for this position the first time, commissioners got paid $12,000, 15,000. Before I started, it went up and now it's gone up again. Not that I don't think that we don't all work very hard and shouldn't deserve more money, but my personal ethos was that I wanted to make sure other people were paid before we were paid sitting at this table. We were elected to do this job and not doing it. I think anybody at this table is our primary income. In terms of the economy, everybody who commented here today knows this. The consumer confidence index is at the lowest it's been even within the pandemic, 63.8%. In the pandemic, it was 70. Those are numbers put out from the University of Michigan. 15 gallons of gas cost $38 in 2020. It cost $49 in 2023. Groceries have gone up since late 2019, 26%. Home prices nationally, I can't even say it. They've gone up 47% since 2020. In Washtenaw County, I cited this number at the housing conference. In Washtenaw County, they've gone up 38%. 2% will not cut it. 2%, I agree with you, will not cut it. I will be doing what I can and pushing what I can to make sure that you are going to get a raise that shows the dignity of the work that you do, because 2% does not cut it. $2% makes me furious, and I'm not the one they're offering it to. So thank you for coming. Thank you for being active in your union. Thank you for advocating for your peers. Thank you for advocating for workers. Thank you.
Commissioner Light and then Commissioner Sanders.
I would like to just thank everyone who has come out to speak with us and to give us your concerns, as it is alarming for some of the things that have been said. And not only for myself, but for the board, we are listening and we are working. I want you to know that I work for you. I am here for you. I am a phone call away, a text away, an email away. I will show up for you, and that's what you elected me to do, as well as my colleagues, and that's what we are doing. We are going to make sure that we come to a consensus so that we can make sure our employees not only are compensated fairly, but you are working in a safe environment, and that you know that we appreciate your work and everything that you do. With our homeless issue, we are working. We have allocated funding, and now we have to put the work behind with the programming to make sure that those funds are put into programs. So we just ask if you grace us with just I know we don't have time, but we just have to make sure that we do the due diligence so that we can not just Band-Aid our homeless issue, and make sure that we are transitioning individuals into long-term sustainable housing and employment. We want to we want to utilize wraparound services, not just placing you in a home, not just sheltering you until the spring. We want to make sure that we don't just Band-Aid a situation. So we ask that you grace us so that we can make sure that we are doing due diligence and doing the best to make sure that we put a solution and resolve the issue of homelessness in our county. And so that is all that I have.
All right, Commissioner Sanders.
I'll start with the MSSI. I said I wasn't going to name off because it's a whole laundry list of individual organizations and institutions that were initially a part of the creation of the mobile services, support services initiative. But I do want to share for the purposes of people being able to understand that this was created and continues to be a collaborative initiative. Our original partners included organizations like the Corner Health Center, SOS, Trinity Health, Michigan Works, unbeknownst to probably Jimena, because I hadn't met her yet, even some of her staff at the health department. And this was created because I recognized that there are a number, probably too many to count, of vulnerable residents in the eastern and western side of the county that just they just didn't have access. And so this initiative was born actually before I was sworn into office, actually even before I won my first primary. And I can say that this is one of probably 3 initiatives that I've created where there was not one no at the table. Everyone understood that this was meant and will be a win-win for everyone, but specifically the residents on top, those students and soon-to-be professionals that are attending our institutions of higher education here in Washtenaw County, and absolutely a sharing of the cost and resources necessary in order to run such an initiative. And initiative was purposely chosen. So I understand that people may have concerns, but I make no apologies for creating the program. I'm quite thankful to my other employer, Eastern Michigan University, for allowing me to flush this idea out on their time before it was offered and asked of the county commissioners, of which I was not one at the time, voted unanimously to support this initiative because it made sense. There were no losers. There are no losers in this. And again, it is putting the residents first. Before anybody else, it's putting them first. And it's putting the ones that need our help the most at the top of the list. So, you know, it's unfortunate if people feel as though because there's a shiny new RV out there that's going to be wrapped and is handy capable with, you know, the capacity to allow someone who is in a wheelchair to be able to access, get on the bus and receive a number of different services. I'm sorry, I'm not going to apologize for that. That is what our taxpayers are paying us to do, to look out for them and to put them first. And it's disappointing that the numbers that are provided just always seem to be inaccurate. The vehicle did not cost $400,000. I just need for you to kind of get your facts straight before you come in and try and beat us over the head about things. I just need you to know. How about you just ask somebody? I'm available. I have an email address. I have a cell phone number. I've not received one inquiry. And this has been approved since December of 2020. It has taken that long to get to this point, and I need to let the public know that it was not the original plan to have a brand new RV. I requested and received 2 donated vehicles from Ann Arbor Area Transit Authority. And I need to say thank you to them, because had they not said yes to me and said yes to me immediately upon my request, they didn't ask any questions. They said, absolutely, we have 2 vehicles for you. Had they not done that, this would not even be breathing life at this point. But unfortunately, those vehicles were of the age, even though they're in good condition, that the retrofitters did not want to work on them. So we didn't have a choice if we were going to continue to try and provide this service to our residents. So I just needed to do a little fact checking there. I can hold my own in a fight, but I just need you to come fair with it. And in relationship to the family leave, as a single mother that is basically co-parenting the raising of my grandson, I wish my employer would have had the foresight to look for something like this that has the capacity to level the playing field, because this type of benefit is an equity leveler. It allows people who may not have had an opportunity to get a job, a good job with excellent benefits, working for a county, to not have to put off their plans if they decide that they want to have a child or start a family, or God forbid, are placed in a situation where they may need to take on the care of a minor in their family because of some other circumstance, to know that their job is not in jeopardy. And this is not a give or take. We're not currently asking the employees to give up anything in order to receive this benefit. And I think that speaks volumes for the commissioners and their commitment to families and children. So I wanted to add my 2 cents about that. I support the family leave wholeheartedly, and would welcome any conversation from anybody else that may be coming from a position of privilege that feels like because it wasn't there for them, everybody else should continue to have to go through the same process as they did, because that's not equitable. And times have changed, and this makes it so it is open to males, females, and should indicate that the county is and continues to be, contrary to other opinions, we do care about our employees. We do care about our residents. And I think that our choices when we do budgeting and things like that makes that clear. May not be all that everybody wants, but we do hear them and we do respond. And so I thank you for the time.
Thank you. Commissioner, so there are requests for round 2. And if you want to be in the queue for round 2, you know who you are. But we're going to go to Commissioner Maciejewski because that's round 1. That's a round 1.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. I want to start by thanking everyone for coming out tonight and offering their public comment. I also want to recognize that there was written public comment from a resident in my district supporting the climate action plan and our actions on that tonight. I want to thank that person for submitting written comment as well. I also look forward to supporting the measure before us tonight on parental leave for the county. It's a significant step forward for us, and I look forward to that vote tonight. I do also want to touch on the mobile support services initiative. As somebody who voted for that, as Commissioner Sanders just pointed out, there was a unanimous vote back in December 2020, 3 years ago when we did that. And for me, this is one of the things I hear about from my constituents is access to county services. And, my interest and my motivation for supporting that and working on that in my first term was many things related to social determinants of health and access to health care. I had a very heavy lens with public health at that time, as we were in the middle of the pandemic and people wanting to access public health services and that could not. And that is an issue all across of our county. In my district specifically, it's a rural issue with people not having transportation to get in to the places that were offering vaccinations in 2021. So my support for that was strong and remains strong. And I look forward to getting that unit out in our community to do public health events and to do a variety of community outreach and bring resources to people that cannot easily access them. So, I think it's going to be a really important piece of what we do as the county. I never envisioned a scenario where as a county commissioner, I would actually like ride in it or use it or do anything like that. So it's really a way to bring resources out into the community in a variety of communities as well. So I thank others for the prior comments about that as well this evening, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. We got Commissioner Somerville, then Commissioner Robbie, and then Commissioner Scott. We're in round 2, friends. You first,
Thank you.
yes.
Tucked away in my list of notes, I forgot to just bring up, I was not on the board and have not really been involved in the conversations around the mobile support services. But I will say, being in this role for almost an entire year now and serving previously in the city of Ypsilanti, there are a lot of folks in Washtenaw County who, whether they own a house or rent, pay into the system that funds our services at the county, but never get to utilize them, that desperately need them. A lot of vulnerable people who don't even know that we have programs to help get them between paychecks and make sure that their electricity doesn't get shut off. People who really could benefit, like we saw during the pandemic, from just some preventative health care. And people who have, a serious mistrust of the medical field and industry for good reason, that could benefit from some support from our health department team. And people who work for our county look like the community, and that's just a real benefit. I think in particular, I say this, I don't know if it's actually, I think it's a fact. My district has the highest concentration of low opportunity. So in Superior Township, where I represent, and the part of Ypsi Township that touches Superior Township in my district, folks have little access to most basic resources that a lot of us at this table and in the audience just take for granted. And so I just want to uplift that. It might not make sense, which I'm glad people brought it up so that we could share more details on the importance of it and where it started. But it is kind of one of those like more forward-thinking things that can actually increase the life expectancy of folks. People in my district have I think the difference is about 10 years in life expectancy, just where the difference in zip code from Ann Arbor to Ypsilanti. So, and I know the same is true for rural parts of our community. So there are just some basic services that every resident in our county, quite frankly, is deserving of, because we all, in one way or another, pay into taxes that fund these programs. And I think the people who need them the most should have adequate access. And there are many barriers to that, transportation being one, and mistrust being another, and just not knowing that they exist. So I'm excited for our staff, because it's not really going to be us doing it, being able to help them get more on the ground and closer to people and help people thrive. So I just want to uplift that. I wasn't here when this started. I didn't even know that it was going to be out here today, but I just want to say the smile on Commissioner Sanders' face, it's nice to see something come to life. And I know that there's still more work to do to actually get everything going with that, but the accessibility factor, it's also rare that support services and things like that make even consideration and space for people living with disabilities. So I'm really excited about it.
Commissioner Robbie.
Round 2.
Round 2.
2.
Yeah.
Okay, there was a few things that I wanted to mention that I didn't get a chance to. Just to start off, I want to thank my colleagues for speaking to it, but I am new to the mobile unit. It was something that Commissioner Sanders, I think when she was running, approached me about and told me the idea, and that it would be involving the buses, as she outlined. And so that was the first time that I had heard about it, and the idea, the concept of it was something that made a lot of sense to me, of bringing county government to the people, to where they're at, to community events and stuff like that. And so, of course, circumstances changed with the actual vehicle. I wasn't on the board at the time or anything like that. I was on the board when we voted on staffing for the position, which came up, or for the unit, which came up earlier this year. And I just had some conversations with the administrator and some of my colleagues about those positions in the context of, some of the conversations we're having today. And I think, one thing that I'd like to see moving forward, because I think this is kind of an evolving project, is that the positions that we're creating, that we want to make sure, I would like to make sure that they're within the bargaining unit, the AFSCME bargaining unit. And I'd like to have that conversation moving forward, because I think, we do need to create community buy-in here. And I think there is a lot of opportunity in what it can be and what it can house. And so as we continue that conversation, I look forward to being part of that. And thank Commissioner Sanders for, leading on that issue and being open to these conversations. On the family leave, I didn't get a chance to talk about that. And actually mention something that I wanted to mention, which is, of course, thank you to Representative Brabeck for getting that initiated. But I also wanted to thank some of our staff that worked on this. And I know I had a long conversation with Elise, and I just want to thank Elise for her work on this and the hours that she put into making this happen, over many years. And so I just, a lot of work was put in, and I want to thank her for her work on this, along with Crystal and Andrew and Brady and anybody else that worked on this project at the county staff. This is such an important initiative that will change lives, and Michelle and many others, I think, that were involved. And so I just want to thank all of you for putting your time into making this happen. It is going to make an impact, on our community. And the last thing I wanted to just mention is building off of something that Commissioner Scott said, which I think we need to, just for a second, bear with me. We need to zoom out of this situation just briefly. And again, I want to build off of what Commissioner Scott said, build off something that Ian said about kind of our, broader neoliberal situation that we're in. And just, you were talking about all the increases, inflationary increases, and it hasn't been mentioned tonight, but it needs to be mentioned. There are a few people in this country that are making a lot of money off of those increases. And the wealth gap in our country has grown to an embarrassing level. And to think about, the fact that some people, even in our community, are making such immense sums of money off of all of us. When we buy a car, when we buy insurance, when we go to the grocery store, when we buy a house, the fact that some people are making so much money, obscene amounts of money that could fund entire countries. Their budgets for multiple years could feed the entire country for multiple years. To think of the amount of wealth that is being stolen from us. And it needs to be mentioned in the context of this, because what we are doing today is talking about how we spend a limited pot of money that is frankly artificially limited. It's artificially limited. It doesn't need to be this small. We can do more. County government we should do more. But we can't, because we have been, shackled by the state saying we can't raise revenue this way, we can't raise revenue that way. We need to think differently about who we are as a county, as government in general, and we need to unaccept the reality that allows some people to make millions and billions of dollars while we fight over a $30,000, $50,000 salary. That is wrong in this country. It is wrong in this world. It is wrong morally. And when we look at our financial situation, we're not in bad shape necessarily right now. How do we increase revenues to the county in a way that frankly taxes the wealthiest in our community? We need to tax the rich, frankly. They are making too much money. They are hoarding their wealth while we are fighting over the scraps. And that reality cannot continue. The neoliberal society that we live in is failing us. Capitalism is failing us. And we cannot continue to live in this reality and just pretend like nothing is wrong. Pretend like it's okay to put tarp on your roof to prevent a leak, to pretend that it's okay to drive around with a broken taillight because you can't afford to replace it. Pretend it's okay to have cracked windows in your house, to not replace your roof. Pretend it's okay to live in a society like that, that treats our people like that, when some people are literally flying to the moon just for a joyride. That's so incredibly messed up. So I think, you know, the reason I bring this up is because as a board, I believe we need to be thinking outside of the box and thinking about ways that we can, reframe what we do here in the context of that, in the context of thinking about how do we make sure that those that are profiting off of our community, those that are extracting a rent, those that are extracting from our residents, how do we make sure that they pay for the services that we provide in our community, and not just pay on a flat rate, but pay a larger rate than everybody else. We need graduated taxes that make sure that the rich pay their fair share for the services that we have, that we provide. And we need to really look at that. And if we can't do it today, we need to make sure that our state legislators, which is fully Democratic trifecta, great. Let's look at new revenue sources. Let's look at new ways of allowing local communities to raise revenue where we make sure that the rich pay their fair share for the services in our community. So I know it's big picture. I know it's not in the immediate term something that we can necessarily control, but it needs to be said in the context of this inflation, in the context of trips to the grocery store. Somebody is making money. Somebody is making money off of us. And we need to change that whole dynamic in our society. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you pointing at yourself? Commissioner Scott and then Commissioner Beeman.
Thank you, Chair. I want to clarify something. You know how I said I wanted to work on the parental leave policy and include all parents? Well, we've already done it. I had clarification from Elise Asbury Payne that this does include all parents. And so if you are the non-birth parent, you also qualify for the family leave policy. So thank you for being so progressive and wonderful, staff. And I'm extra glad about this. Thank you.
Love the real-time fact checking, right?
I just wanted to note I was wrong and I was corrected, and it's extra good.
Extra good. We like extra good. Most good. Commissioner Beeman.
Thank you, Chair. I was trying to be succinct. I also realized I had not thanked Representative Brabeck for coming and speaking about the leave, and to thank her for bringing that forward years ago and coming to champion it again tonight. It's also one of the pieces that I wanted to piggyback on the mobile unit that I was so thankful for Commissioner Sanders bringing to us before she came to the board. And then further on as her role as a commissioner. I will selfishly say that in my district, my residents will benefit from it. And going off of that family leave, maternal mortality rates are twice as high for women in rural communities. We bleed, we die, we get infections, we don't get to the hospital in time, we don't have the same, it's worse than in urban areas, because we don't have the access to those resources. Additionally, on my farms, I have migrant workers and they need support too. And they don't know where to go, and they need interpreters, and they need people coming to them because they don't know where they need to go to get simple services like vaccinations, like proper paperwork and documentations and all of those different things that the government can provide to them. That's out in my rural communities, in my rural areas. And it is a way, again, for everyone across Washtenaw County to receive services. The only two standing services in District 3, we have a sheriff's office and we have a court. That's it. There's nothing else. The health department will come to my churches and give vaccinations. Others will come, but they have to find a space. we don't have a space. And so this allows all of our services from Washtenaw County and our partner organizations, as Commissioner Sanders mentioned, to come out to these areas where there are still poor, there are still disadvantaged in every single corner of our county, and we can touch every single one of them. So I thank her for that. And I voted for it and I'm excited for it.
All right, anybody else? Are you thinking about round two? You are on. Commissioner Sanders, go ahead.
It's quick. I neglected to say thank you to the staff that have been working on the MSSI. They're the ones that pulled this together and made it a reality. And some of them may not have been on board initially, but they certainly are now on board because they recognize the tremendous touch that can occur with a successful initiative. So I want to thank Brady and Terrence and Andrew, and if I'm leaving anybody out, you can just beat me with the wet noodle later. But thank you very much for your work on that. Also, I'd like to thank my predecessor, Representative Brabeck, for bringing the idea of the family leave to our attention, and glad that we are able to make it come to fruition after the fact, now that she's moved on and is raising hell in better and higher places. And I think I need to say, so I've gotten some feedback from some of our county employees about, the civility of their workplaces or lack thereof. And I just need to say that, we can disagree with people and still be, as my pastor used to say, decent and in order. You're not going to get a whole lot by thinking that you can yell and demoralize and try and talk down to people and then not understand why they don't want to cooperate with you. And so I'm just saying that out loud because I expect, as I experience on this board, even when we don't agree with each other, there's still a level of respect that we have. And I would expect that that is the same for our workforce. You can discipline people. You can tell people that they're not doing their job right, but you can do it in a decent way. And no one, I don't care what your position is, has the right to be dismissive and disrespectful to people that they're working with. And so I'm saying that out loud because I've gotten enough people, pulling me aside and telling me how they're being treated by coworkers, by people that are supposed to be representing them, and by supervisors. And it's not okay. I'm not HR. That's not my job. That's your job. But decency and in order is something that I think we all as commissioners should be expecting our workers should have in their workplaces. People have enough of their own personal problems coming into situations without somebody having the audacity to think that they can add to it, and it's okay. So you'll have to read between the lines on that, but I just want to make it clear, nobody has the right to mistreat anyone.
Anybody else? No. I mean, we can do round three. We can do it. Yeah. We got all night. All night. No? Okay. All right. If that's it for everybody, I will be brief. It's rare that we have commissioner follow-up to public comment to be as long as public comment, so I'm not going to talk too long. I just will thank everyone that's come out to share public comment tonight, especially people, I think our friends from Pinball Pets are advocating on behalf of Pinball Pets. Many of them, it was their first time giving public comment. They're not here. I know it can be very challenging to come before any government body and do the whole weird thing where you get to talk for a little while and you have to listen to everyone else talk, and then the people that you're coming to talk to can't respond to you right away. So thank you to all of them, and hopefully they'll share with their friends and loved ones that it wasn't a terrible experience, and maybe they'll come back and engage government more regularly. Maybe. We're a cool government here. To the point about staff wages, I say particularly for public health and community mental health, I'm really concerned about that too, especially as Michigan medicine continues to expand and creates more job opportunities. I don't want us to lose staff. We have fantastic employees in all of our departments, and we do great work in public health and community mental health. So I want us to be able to figure out how we can make sure we're retaining our staff. I think the family leave policy that we will be voting on today is a great component of that. And really grateful for Representative Brabeck coming to share the document that she shared with us and to give public comment. She was at a number of events today. She was here for the holiday party, had to go somewhere else and came back to give comment. And I want to thank all the staff for their work on that one. I know Elisa Michelle in particular have put a lot of time into that. So thank you. It's been it's taken years, right? It's taken years. And I'm glad that we can get it on the agenda to hopefully close out the year as a holiday gift to the organization, potentially. Let's see what else I have to say. MSSI, much has been said about the MSSI. I don't want to add much more to that, but just that it was something that the board allocated funding to years ago, and it's just taken a really long time. And the original vision for it were the 2 buses that Commissioner Sanders put a lot of time and effort into acquiring. It was unfortunate that we were unable to find anybody to retrofit those buses, and we had to come up with a new strategy. And I think that was a really challenging time as we figured out what were we going to do to be able to still make the program work. Because as we've talked about, what this is at its core is figuring out how do we bring services directly to people that need them. When we think about underserved areas in the county, whether it's in the western part of the county or the eastern part of the county, we want to be able to get services directly to people so people have a touch point with county government. We've seen significant successes with this model with the health mobiles that the health department has. I call it the health mobile. I don't know if it has an official name yet. Jimena will tell me. But we have a vision for being able to have partnership between the work that public health is doing with their mobile vehicle and what we'll be able to provide with the Mobile Support Services Initiative. We'll need to come up with probably a catchier name, but we'll be able to, it's a mouthful. So we've got, CMH will be able to, staff from CMH will be able to ride in the MSSI, nonprofit partners. We could have public health in there too. And as it's been pointed out, when we look at social determinants of health in the county and some of the health disparities that we see, as Commissioner Somerville mentioned earlier, many of those health disparities are also the same in my district. Pre-pandemic, we would see a 10-year life expectancy difference between a Black resident in Ypsilanti and a white resident in Ann Arbor. So we need to be doing more around health equity, and the MSSI is one of those strategies that we've invested in to be able to do that. So thank you to the staff. As Commissioner Sanders mentioned, a lot of time and effort went into that. I remember following a meeting we had at the health department, Russ from the health department took me and Ashley out to go take a good look at the health mobile to figure out if that same kind of vehicle could be used for the purposes that we discussed. It wasn't, and then we went to look at RVs just as a potential option. And that wasn't the original intention, but having looked at RVs, and seeing and talking about what we're hoping to be able to achieve with the project, it's a good fit. And I hope to the people that spoke about the MSSI that we found a way to make it make sense, because it makes sense from us, I think, from a service delivery perspective. To our friends and housing advocates, I would just say that in the last 16 months, the board has allocated almost $9 million to addressing housing and homelessness. And I don't say that to say, okay, we're done now, because we're not. We just had, as was mentioned earlier, a housing summit, an all-day event last Friday. And really a lot of the work that we've been doing related to housing is really just the beginning of that. So we've done about 9 million. We're going to do more, but we're trying to be very strategic in what we do to create longer term change. It's one of the reasons why we have the funding for permanent positions and Hawk as part of the budget that we're going to be voting on later today. So keep on coming out, keep on sharing ideas and concerns. We're here for it. That's it for me. Right, 9 o'clock, right on the dot. If nobody objects, you want to take a 10-minute recess? Yes, 10-minute recess. Come back at 9:10. coming back. I can't keep you all here. Let's get back at it. All right, liaison reports. Who has a liaison report for me? No. Are you saying to skip liaison reports? Well, okay, well, I will give a brief liaison report that we gotta do the job. Come on, no. All right, so we had Ann Arbor Spark meeting. There's a significant amount of funding coming into Washtenaw County from the state related to Spark. I think it'll be, my friends want me to be brief here, but I think I'll have more to share on that in the future. But it's an encouraging amount of funding coming from the state into Washtenaw County at amounts yet before unseen. Yeah, okay. Then we also had the CJCC meeting, and that went well. We've continued to have a conversation about re-envisioning what community corrections should look like. If you remember, we passed a resolution directing the CJCC to come up with recommendations within a year on how to sustainably resource what community corrections will look like. We had a great time with a whiteboard. I wrote on the whiteboard, people, their ideas pinging all around the room. It was a really good meeting. And we had advisory council on reparations, which went well. They are close to, they did, I believe, pass their bylaws. So that'll come before us soon, and we'll vote on those and approve them and move it forward. No, we did not do that. Thank you for correcting me. We did, they came close to it. They came close. They're really putting a lot of thought into thank you for correcting that. They put a lot of thought into the bylaws, but didn't approve them. And that's it for liaison reports. Moving on to the next item here. We've got special orders of business. There are none. This is the end of year appointments situation, which is a mini appointments. Bryce and I had a great time working through what is more than 100 appointments here. I would look for somebody to move the appointments. Commissioner Scott, thank you. Any discussion on the appointments? No discussion on the appointments. This is a voice vote, right, Bryce? It's not. Oh man, I'm all over the place. I'm sorry. Oh, what is going on? All right, Bryce, roll call us on the appointments here.
Sure. Commissioner Hodge.
Yes.
Commissioner Labar.
Yes.
Commissioner Light.
Yes.
Commissioner Machieski.
Yes.
Commissioner Robbie. Commissioner Sanders.
Yes.
Commissioner Scott. Commissioner Somerville.
Yes.
Commissioner Beeman.
Yes.
Sure.
I was just trying to trick you, Bryce. I mean, that was a test and you passed. Excellent. All right, onto the consent agenda. There were no really interesting communications. So sorry, Commissioner Scott, but I believe at our next meeting, particularly because some of the chaos in Ottawa County, I'm sure they will send us something, or we can start sending them something. But in the absence of that, I would look for a motion to approve the consent agenda. All right, now any discussion or anything? Nope. Okay, now this one is a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And no abstentions. Great. All right, now we're on to the meat here. It is time for resolutions. I will look for someone, since today is our final meeting of the year. We only have final reading and single reading resolutions. So if someone would be so inclined to read me all of the resolutions, including claims. Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move the following resolutions. 1A, a resolution ratifying the application and acceptance of the Connect and Protect Law Enforcement Behavioral Response Grant from the Sheriff's Office. B, a resolution to expand diversion, deflection, and violence intervention programming with the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Office and to authorize the creation and modification of related program positions from the Sheriff's Office. C, a resolution providing funding for additional senior serving agencies from administration. D, a resolution to adopt the 2024-2027 recommended quadrennial budget from finance. In the single reading, 2A, a resolution approving the 2024-2027 collective bargaining agreement with the Assistant Prosecutors Association from Corporation Counsel. B, a resolution approving the 2024-27 collective bargaining agreement with the Public Defenders Association from Corporation Counsel. C, a resolution approving the workforce stabilization payments to eligible employees who have not previously received either premium pay or workforce stabilization payments. D, a resolution establishing a parental leave policy for Washtenaw County employees. And 3, approval of claims.
Is there support? Thank you for reading that. I always appreciate that. All right, does anybody want to pull any for separate consideration? Commissioner Robbie.
Could we pull the budget and the stabilization payments?
Of course we can. Anybody else want to pull any other ones? I saw a hand come up, but were those the ones you wanted? Okay, are we able to move forward with the other ones? Yeah, we're gonna do that one first. So discussion on all the remaining items that weren't pulled. Any? None. Yes, you, Commissioner Robbie.
Just a quick question, hopefully, in terms of item B, the creation and modification of positions in the sheriff's office, could we get a union, non-union breakdown on that in terms of the reclassifications in particular?
Do we have a friend online who's gonna phone a friend? We do? Who are we phoning in? Please wait. Do it.
Hi, Commissioners. This is Director Derek Jackson here.
Hi, Director Derek Jackson.
Hi, Chair. Commissioner Robbie, none of those positions are union positions. If that was the question, I think I heard you correct ask that.
Yeah, so none of the reclassified positions are currently non-union and they're being reclassified to still be non-union?
Correct, yes.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for Director Derek Jackson? Commissioner Robbie, I'm sorry. Commissioner Labar.
I will take the additional height and good looks, so thank you. Director Jackson, can you just walk us through in a quick and dirty version here, what you're doing with these? Because I do think it's a tangible example on the millage dollars. What do these two positions be particularly doing that are of benefit in a nutshell?
Yeah, so there's some reclassifications of positions that are already there doing some pretty good work, like the Sure Moms coordinator. We're just making sure that all of our coordinators are at the same pay rate. And so that's one of the reclassifications. For the peer-to-peer coordinator and the We Live coordinator, those are two programs that have continued to grow. Peer-to-peer is in partnership with the Michigan Department of Corrections. They came to us years ago because they were having so many people who were on felony probation get violated and get sent back to prison. So that cost a lot of money, but it was also destroying a lot of lives. And because we have an outreach program that is pretty successful at helping people navigate the system and not go back to jail, they asked us to basically have like a mentoring program with those who are on felony probation. So that's called peer-to-peer, and it's run through community corrections. It's been pretty successful as far as the number of people going through. We are expanding the program and quite honestly, making sure it has the supervision and the focus and the coordination that it really deserves. So that's the peer-to-peer coordinator that is funded out of the millage. The other one is the We Live, and We Live is all of our violence intervention programs where we go up into Trinity Hospital and work with people who've been violently injured, working with them to prevent them from going back out on the street and retaliating and perpetuating future violence. So that program, the same as peer-to-peer, has been really successful. But now we're to the point where it needs the direct supervision. Quite honestly, dealing with some of those situations that aren't just a fight in the street, right? Someone shot someone or tried to kill someone else, making sure you have the right kind of supervision to manage those situations and help the program to grow and expand is really where why we're having that We Live coordinator position created. So those are the two main creation programs. Both programs that are working great, expansion in the future, but also having the right kind of supervision and focus and investment so that it can be successful in the future.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else? Excellent. Well, thank you, Director Jackson. As people know, if they've been following our show here, addressing community violence is incredibly important to the board. We've made significant investments in this, and this is just another example of the work that the county is doing related to that. If there's no other questions, go ahead. You got anything else?
No, just saying thank you.
Oh, thank you. Point at you with the gavel. Pay attention. Okay, good. All right, go ahead, Bryce. Roll call it. Oh, sorry. Nope, not yet. Any other questions about any of the other, because we're about to vote on the stack of resolutions that weren't pulled. Last call. All right, Bryce, now do it.
Commissioner Labar.
Yes.
Commissioner Light.
Yes.
Commissioner Maciejewski.
Yes.
Commissioner Robbie. Commissioner Sanders.
Yes.
Commissioner Scott.
Yes.
Commissioner Somerville.
Yes.
Commissioner Beeman.
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge.
Yes.
Chair.
Most resolutions passed. Excellent. All right, we're gonna move on now to the budget, the main show here, the one that the administrator has been most concerned about. But I've told him we're gonna get it done. Commissioner Robbie you pulled it. What's your question?
Well, no questions really. I just had a nuanced vote that I wanted to
Express.
express
I
as we were
appreciate
voting.
it.
So
Okay,
that was
good.
more the intent.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or? Yeah, Commissioner LeBar.
Thanks, Chair. Administrator Dill, can you just highlight real quick the discussion we had at the last meeting around 150 for youth services, just the status of that within the resolution?
So I believe we left that item is that what was in the budget, it needed some additional work. There's an additional, I want to say, $75,000 that we'll have to find after this budget is passed. We're working through that, and we will bring that back to the board at our next business meeting in.
No, we've got to answer.
In the resolution in front of you, in the final reading, it takes the full 150,000 from the infrastructure allocation.
That's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So we had talked with IT and facilities to assess the impacts. There's memos in your packets of what those would be, but the budget as it is before you represents $150,000 in there for youth services.
And that's per year over the 4 years, so not structural in the sense that it's ongoing after the life of this quadrennial budget, but there for all 4 years.
Correct.
Okay. I had a suspicion an answer would come like that, and appreciate highlighting it and appreciate the work to make that possible.
And Commissioner, I apologize. Catherine and I just talked about that a few days ago. So
I am
initially we
frequently
had talked
confused,
about
so
that.
don't worry. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, Bryce, it's time for some voting and some nuanced voting. What? Oh, well, Commissioner Somerville, please, before Bryce gets started.
Yeah, thank you. I know I mentioned this earlier in my commissioner follow-up, but I am really hopeful that after passing this, we can look for other ways to continue increasing ongoing support for housing and homelessness. But more importantly, I really hope that we can take a deep dive next year into improving our Hawk system. I'm really grateful that we're moving forward with the allocation to make some of those positions permanent, but it's not going to actually get us to where we need. And all of the funding that we approved a few meetings ago won't be successfully utilized and pushed out and help the most people if we don't take other steps to continue increasing capacity permanently for Hawk. So I'm grateful that we have included that in this budget, but I hope can do more in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm grateful for you bringing that up. I expect that, the dollars that we're allocating to Hawk now will not be enough, but we know that. And I expect that once we get use some of those dollars to hire permanently in those positions, we will hear that we need more, and then we will meet that need. Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Chair. I know that we have money that is in this budget, just to the point of having people come to our meeting today to talk about the contracts. So I know that there is money set aside in the budget for the contract negotiations. I would ask that, I know that the budget is an ongoing document, that although we approve this budget this evening, it doesn't mean that the budget is set in stone. I'm just going to ask that we look for additional money as needed to be able to think about how we can compensate our workers fairly. Thank you.
We will certainly do that. Is that it? That's not a hand. Nope. Okay, Bryce, let's do it.
Commissioner Light,
Yes.
Commissioner Maciejewski,
Yes.
Commissioner Robbie,
Nuance. So similar to last time, I will vote yes on everything except no on Humane Society line and no on the reclassification of the union supervisor position to a non-union position within parks. And I would also like to abstain from the public health budget and any components that impact the nurses unit within that budget.
Did you get all that, Bryce?
Thank you, Commissioner.
Do you need to repeat anything? No, because you are a fast typer.
Commissioner Sanders,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott. Commissioner Somerville,
Yes.
Commissioner Beaman,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge.
Yes.
Commissioner LeBlanc.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, before I bang the gavel, I would just say we have passed the county budget. You know, this is the administrator's birthday is coming up. And I told him that I would be sure to get the budget passed before his birthday. So happy birthday, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. Budget passed. All right. Woo! Yay. That's good work, right? It's good work. All right. On to the final item that was pulled. Any discussion related to? Yes. Oh, you want to go? You want to jump?
Thank you, commissioners. I would like to begin by saying that I am aware that you all have taken action on this item prior to today. And I am also aware that there is strong frustration with this item returning, my words. So I want to acknowledge those two things before you all take any action that you deem is appropriate. I also want to say that I looked at this item and continue to look at this item through the lens of what we passed on July 12th. The one whereas that I'd like to lift up is whereas the county continued to provide critical safety net services to the community during the pandemic, never ceasing operations with many frontline employees working in person. That includes that group over $150,000. And in fact, when we think about the narrative that Washtenaw County was the thought leader for the state, the governor coming to our community to look at and review the work that was happening, the staffing of vaccine clinics, the conversations that continue to happen in our community when no other public unit was working. As you all know, we furloughed most of our organization with the exception of many of these individuals. I just asked the chair for some consideration in bringing this item back. So I wanted to use those things to lift up this item. And I certainly understand that there is strong frustration on this item, but wanted to know if there is any space for this body to reconsider the decision that you all made on July 12th.
Well, while you're speaking about the item, maybe you should add that it's not the exact same thing. There are additional components to it. Like it's a significantly different kind of thing.
Well, there is one additional component. You can see it in the resolution. It includes temporary staff. So that piece is lifted up in the resolution. So,
which is roughly 200 people. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Now, Commissioner Scott, I think you were before Commissioner Robbie, or you were going to try to talk a minute.
Thank you, Chair. I think that Administrator Dill is, he's seen frustration with this. That's me. I've told him how frustrated I am that this has come before us when I felt like we already voted on this as a policy item. In particular, the workforce stabilization for people making over $150,000. I think it's lovely that we're thinking about including some of these temps. I am concerned that some of these temps have been temps since 2020. That it is there are 113 people, active temporary employees, and worked as temporary employees during COVID prior to December 31st, 2022. This is a long time for people to be working as temps. I understand sometimes people want to work temps for their own schedule needs or things like that, but this
that particular part of this resolution, it has triggered more questions for me about the number of temp employees we have and why we have so many. So there'll be more questions coming on that. I remain opposed to continuing to think about paying people who are making in excess of 150,000 the workforce stabilization payments, not because I don't appreciate the work that they do, because I very much do. And I know that many of those people worked very hard during the pandemic and worked face to face with people during the pandemic. And I understand intimately, as I have said before, how incredibly stressful that was for us, especially in the beginning stages of the pandemic when we did not know a lot about the disease in front of us. I was one of those people working with the people who were dying every day from that pandemic. So I understand the angst and I understand the commitment it took to work every day during that face-to-face with people. At this point in this resolution, we're talking about one-time payments to 17 people, that total $136,000. I know that's a one-time payment and we are thinking about what we want to do structurally, but I would tell you, my colleagues on the board with me right now, that $136,000, one bonus, let's just say one bonus for somebody that in this group would pay for 16 people through barrier busters to get $500 grants this winter. If we took all of those people, included 136, that's 272 families we could be helping with grants of $500, which is the average cost in an emergency that Barrier Busters gives. That's 272 families not losing their childcare, being able to pay their gas bill, being able to help get groceries. We just talked about the issue that people have in this community with not being able to buy groceries and afford rent. If you are in the top 2 tax brackets, you are most likely, it's true, we don't know everybody's financial situation, but you are most likely not dealing with the same problems as that. And I'm going to tell you that I think that the needs of 272 families that we could be helping through a one-time grant to Barrier Busters of $136,000 supersede the needs of 17. Thank you.
Commissioner Robbie, go ahead. You got to touch the middle. There you go.
I think I figured it out. It's only December.
We're gonna have new mics soon, so
Okay,
there'll
cool.
be a learning curve again.
Yeah. So thank you. So I want to start by largely, agreeing with what Commissioner Scott said, in particular about the, highest paid county employees that are going to be receiving this, payment. And, I get where the administrator is coming from on this to a degree, but this is an equity issue for me. And I think, so I will not be supporting that component of the 17 individuals making over 150,000, getting $136,000 worth of payments. However, I am very excited about this, the remainder of this resolution, and this, kind of came out of, I think, something that I brought up at the last meeting, which is that, I think it has been an incredible injustice that, our temporary employees that work for the county have not received this payment already. And I'm glad that we are repairing that injustice and, giving some dollars to some of those temporary employees, 118 of them. It's a little sad to me that 17 people are getting 136,000 and 118 people are getting 180,000. The math doesn't quite make sense to me on that. I know that you've done it by years worked, but also understanding that temporary employees, tend to not stay for, long periods of time with the organization. I have a few questions that you might be able to answer, in the context of this that might help me with this, but Of the 118 people, I assume that the vast majority of them get credit for 1 year of work, 2022. So they get the 2,400. Do you have numbers on what years sorry, I didn't cue this up for you. I should have mentioned that I was going to ask this before, so my apologies. While you're pulling it up, I will ask my second question while you're pulling that up too, which is, I noted that under the category of groups reviewed, not recommended for workforce stabilization payments, we included seasonal employees. And I'm hoping to better understand what that means, because I thought seasonal employees were temps, and so I take it they're not being considered for this, but just want to understand the distinction between the two, in particular with seasonal employees. I think I understand the other categories that are listed here.
Certainly, and we do have those numbers. It will take us a second to pull them together in terms of when the start dates were. So in terms of the seasonal employees, and this is something that we look to speak about with the leadership of the organization to make sure that we were coming back with the correct recommendation to you all. Seasonal employees, the largest group of them would be in parks. And so they're generally positions which have an expected start date and an end date. And so they're going to be time limited as the expectation when they're hired. Similar to internships, interns are another group that were excluded from this too. And our thinking in that recommendation is that because there is no expectation of the employee of ongoing employment, that the stabilization and the continued employment portion or the intent of the workforce stabilization didn't apply to those employee groups because they know they're coming in for something that's time limited.
I guess my one concern with that is that, I think that there are some employees even within parks that come back every year and have a longstanding relationship with the county that isn't, it's seasonal, but I guess how do we define seasonal too?
Yeah, so seasonal is a classification in our ERP system, and that's the first thing that we looked at. We have had additional discussion.
Like how many months is seasonal?
It would vary depending on the role. We have a group of seasonal employees, and I'll say we have done a more fine-grained analysis than just seasonal or not seasonal. For example, there are seasonal employees that are engaged at the Water Resources Commissioner's office that are similar to that, right, where they come back every year, but the work season is only 9 months long because you can't do that type of the work that they do during winter months. So those employees in those classifications are included for recommendation in here. But generally the employees at parks are not because it is not to that degree. We have looked to put language in here though, which would allow for future employees to come up as, should the board approve it this evening, that where we have issue, but where those employees substantially meet the formulas that we've tried to write in could be added to the groups in front of you tonight.
So it's basically an employee that works at parks could be working the same season as an employee not at parks, but not be eligible for the payment, is what you're telling me.
That's not exactly what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
If I can start over with answering your question. So we did again reach out to the leadership of the departments to make sure that we were making the correct recommendation. With the parks employees in particular, we spoke with the parks director because wanted to be able to bring something back. Our intent with this was to be as broad as possible and to start with making the case about why these people should be included and then to only not if there was something like this. But the starting assumption for park seasonal employees is that due to the term limited nature, they would be excluded. And so there were no cases that have come up yet, and they may come up, but yet in terms of the type of employment situation that you've mentioned with a seasonal employee continuing for multiple years.
Okay, so I guess I'm concerned about that distinction. I don't fully understand the line that you've drawn. And it just, I guess putting my personal hat on, I worked for the City of Ann Arbor Parks department for several years and was a seasonal employee that worked 10 months out of the year and was basically had to get unemployment for 2 months out of the year. And, then came back the next year, and I had colleagues that were there for 5 years or more that were working like that without benefits. It's abusive, and Frankly, I want to make sure that all temporary employees are included if they worked through the pandemic, regardless of the seasonality of their employment. I mean, I don't understand, I guess, why we're making that distinction.
Understood. And so Brady's pulling the numbers to your first question, Commissioner, in terms of the start years. So hope to have those soon. To your point in terms of seasonal employees who come back year after year, I think we can make that adjustment. I don't know the extent of them right now. There are other temporary employees who are not classified as seasonal employees, but as temporary employees, which would indicate the ongoing employment and not having any break at any point in the year. And we can run those numbers for you as well. I think.
But it sounds like some seasonal employees are included and some are not.
We're relying on the classification that we have in our system to start with this, but it's certainly been our intent to have this be as broad as possible. And I think we've tried to build into the resolution where if there, again, is another employee who would meet the intent of this resolution, that we'd be able to add them.
Okay, I guess my hope is that if there are seasonal employees that worked through the pandemic, one year, 2 years, or 3 years through the pandemic, I would like to see them be included in this as a temporary employee. I still don't understand the distinction, whether it's 9 months and then they take a 3-month break or whatever it is. Some people seem to be getting it and some people don't, depending on the department they work in. And I just want to make sure if a temporary employee worked during the pandemic, they should be receiving this payment.
Understood. I think I would look to Corp Counsel in terms of if the resolution as written would allow for that. I would hope it would in terms of what we tried to draft, but would rely on her opinion for that.
While Corp Counsel was looking at that, we tried to write this as broad as possible so that we could cast the net wide enough to cover as many employees as possible. If there is the will of the board, and if you all are willing to give me the authority to look at that, I can bring that back to you all at the next business meeting.
I mean, it does say in the resolution, well, there's a whereas clause. I don't know that there's a resolved clause, but the whereas clause speaks to seasonal employees being excluded. So I guess as we pull the numbers and, think through this, I think zooming out from this conversation, I think we really need to grapple with this notion of temporary employees, seasonal employees, however it is. I think that there are some limited circumstances in which having a temporary or seasonal employee may make sense. But, seeing that there's so many individuals, 118, that, are, even if they've only worked for the county since 2022, the seasonal employees, the temporary employees, we need to do better by them. And I think oftentimes we forget that, it's not always, somebody's high schooler that's working as a lifeguard, who has their parents' income to depend on. There are a lot of people who, frankly, have families of their own that are working as temporary workers that are not getting benefits through the county, that are not getting, anything else other than their hourly salary from the county. And we don't employ them on purpose enough to be required to give them benefits. And I think we really need to look ourselves in the mirror on some of this stuff and understand that, we have high values as an organization, or we at least say we do, and we can't, hold our contractors to a higher standard than we hold ourselves. And so, I'm a Parks Commissioner. This is something I want to talk about with the Parks Commission because I know a lot of those temporary employees and seasonal employees are parks, but it applies to other parts of the county too. And so I think we need to look at having an overarching policy for this county in terms of how we treat non-permanent employees in whatever, way those are formulated. The last quick thing I'll say on this is, I'm glad that we're doing this now with the 118 people that are listed. I want to note that in the time that has passed since we did this initially for all the other employees, I'm certain that some of our temporary employees have left the organization. And it's just sort of, and people that worked during the pandemic that were, that were very involved in helping to support our county have left the organization probably because they couldn't afford to be at a job that didn't have benefits anymore. And they're not going to receive this money because they're not working at the county. And so, I want to thank them for their service, even though they're not being recognized by this payment. They are people that put in a lot to this organization that are, due to the circumstances of timing, which are unfortunate, aren't going to be receiving this money. And I think it is sad that we weren't able to act sooner on this. But again, I'm happy that we're doing it now. And I'm grateful to those that came together to make this happen for those that are going to be receiving this. And I look forward to your answers on whether we can get this out to seasonal employee, any temporary employee, be they seasonal or temporary, that worked during the pandemic. And, when you have the time to provide those numbers on what those years are of service.
And I think are you done?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think Corp Counsel was going to say something. I think the resolution also says that it authorizes the administrator and the team to make the payment available to anybody that was missed, even though we do not believe anyone was missed. But go ahead.
My read of the resolution suggests that it's not as flexible as we would like it to be, specifically because seasonal employees are a specific category and they're not listed in the eligible employees that we've expressly listed out.
All right.
And there's also a whereas clause that conflicts.
So no to seasonal employees is as it is written now. Okay, well,
Question on that.
no, go ahead, ask a question on that.
How would it impact the resolution to strike that whereas clause, since it is a whereas clause?
Striking the whereas clause would be helpful. I think what would be most helpful is adding a sixth bullet to the list of eligible employees, specifically speaking to seasonals.
Okay. You have the floor again, or do you need to call on somebody else?
The people are in the queue.
That's fine.
They're,
I was gonna make a motion, but do what you gotta do.
I gotta do what I gotta do. Go ahead. Are you trying to, Commissioner LaBar was next, but he wants you to have it. Commissioner Beeman's after that.
So if I could make a motion then to, in the whereas clause, strike seasonal employees from the list of folks that are not recommended to receive the payments, and to add a sixth bullet point that includes seasonal employees that worked in 2020, 2021, or 2022. Is that acceptable, Corp Counsel, or is that too specific? Or should I just say seasonal employees?
I think that's appropriate.
Is there a second? All right, discussion on this motion. Commissioner Maciejewski.
Thank you. Just trying to understand that a little bit further. Would this include a payment to seasonal employees who are not currently employed as seasonal employees, or would it require them to receive the payment once they come back again to be a seasonal employee?
That's a valid question that I don't have the answer to, but.
Okay, Commissioner Sanders, are you trying to say something?
I had a question, but it's along the same lines as Commissioner Maciejewski. So we would be making sure that they actually were working during COVID?
May I just make a suggestion, given the changes to the resolution, if approved, we would like the opportunity to look at the impact and bring back a recommendation to you all about how we move forward.
If the amendment passes.
If the amendment passes.
Yes. Anybody else? Because at this point, you can't speak, no one can speak to the financial impacts of that, right? Anybody? Nobody? Commissioner LaBar, look at you thinking something.
I won't pretend I'm not trying to figure out some of this on the fly as well. I get that we all are. Greg, I think what you're saying is, folks, I generally hear what you're saying, but can't give you a definitive answer right now because we just haven't run the numbers.
Exactly right. And I'm asking for the opportunity to run those numbers and get it back to you. We won't push anything out until such time as we have communicated it to this body.
Then I would say, in response to that, and in response to the question where we're at on the resolution, I would continue to offer my support to the amendment. My thinking being that the intention is fairly clear to broaden this for reasons of equity. And I think that's not insignificant, especially, and Chair, forgive me, to the point I'll make later when we get back to the underlying resolution. So those are my thoughts on this as it's related to the amendment itself. And I can be patient in time because I understand that that will take a little time. Thank you, Chair.
So the intent of the amendment would be to still use the prorated formula that we've used for all other employees. Yep, yep. He is nodding in the affirmative. Yep. Okay. Anybody else? Commissioner Beeman.
I'll just kind of insert it here. It was what I was gonna say on the other side. I mean, truly the definition when you're looking at like a business perspective of a temporary versus a seasonal. A temporary is supposed to fill a temporary gap, meaning there is a role that you cannot fill with a full-time person, so you bring in a temp. A seasonal is actually to expand your workforce during a time where you know the workload is harder. So to Commissioner Ratby's point, we're actually growing our team when we know we need to grow our team. So they are truly part of our team, whereas a temp is to fill a gap.
Andrew, you were going to speak earlier to the difference in the classification between the seasonal employees and the temporary employees, and you were not able to complete what you were saying. Could you finish what you were going to say a moment ago?
Well, I don't know that I'm the best person to speak to it, but we are.
Well, you were mid sentence. So I'm just trying to give you the
Chair, if you don't mind, if it's the will of the board, I'd like to bring all of that back comprehensive, because we need to have a conversation about it and make sure that what we bring back to you guys is accurate and something that you guys can support. So I don't want to try to do this all on the fly this evening, I guess, is the underlying piece of this for me.
Well, I mean, what would this even look like? This is the last meeting of the year, so it would, it would just come back.
It would have to come back at the first business meeting in 2024.
So somebody would need to table it to kill it, essentially.
Can I ask
that component?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so my question was just to clarify, will the rest of this go through? No problem. It's just the seasonal employees. That's the only component that would come back next year.
Correct.
So we wanted an analysis of that.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. And then we would then vote at a later time on an allocation to potentially to seasonal employees.
Correct.
Okay. I can get with that. I think I can get with that. All right. Anybody else? Bryce, roll call it.
Commissioner Maciejewski,
Yes.
Commissioner Robbie, Commissioner Sanders,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Somerville,
Yes.
Commissioner Beeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge,
Yes.
Commissioner LeBar,
Yes.
Commissioner Light.
Yes.
Sure.
All right. Now we're back to discussion on the motion as amended. And I'm gonna go ahead and go to Commissioner Beeman because you yielded to Commissioner Robbie earlier. Sorry, I'll come back to you after, but I know that she's yielding back to you. So Commissioner LeBar, you go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I was gonna ask our administrator to talk more about some of the tension that's around these 17 positions, but the truth is, one, talking about wages at any level is never comfortable. Two, it is important and difficult because it's a worthy endeavor here of our time. We've talked a little bit about equity tonight, and we've certainly heard that in the context of earlier comments. With the inclusion of Commissioner Robbie's amendment to include temporary folks, I'm willing to support the resolution with the inclusion of these 17 folks above 150. I understand that runs a gamut from folks in public health and community mental health, folks within administration. I get that. But with that said, I'm glad we had this discussion because I think too often we get focused on the numbers and not on what are the interpersonal dynamics and candidly, what is the real world impact on this organization, which again, as we said earlier tonight, is a service provision organization when you have these issues still hanging out. So Administrator Dill, I appreciate that you opened tonight speaking to that. And Commissioner Scott, I certainly hear and take your point, but with the inclusion of Commissioner Robbie's efforts here, I'll be supportive of the underlying package. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Beeman. No, she says no. Anybody else? Are you trying to say something, Administrator?
No, I just want, and forgive me, I know the.
You said
hour's
no,
late.
but
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, I just want to layer on Commissioner LaBar's comment. Commissioner Scott and I had a conversation. I guess I keep looking for adjectives. I would say it's a colorful conversation. Perhaps that's the best way to put it. Yes. So I say all that to say, I understand that this is a challenging decision for us as an organization. My role obviously is to look broadly at the whole of the organization and try to make recommendations to this body that fit within in that framework. I acknowledge that this is difficult. I acknowledge that this has been before you before and you've taken action on it. I acknowledge all of those things. And I just want to say I'm grateful for your consideration of this item. And we have obviously other work to do on the other components of this. So thank you all for your consideration.
Thank you. Anybody else? No. Well, this has been a conversation over many months. I mean, we've heard from staff quite a bit about this. I will support the resolution here, in large part because many of the people that were impacted or that will be receiving it were people in that category that didn't receive it before, work in healthcare, including the medical director whose license we were able to use to be able to vaccinate our county. So with that, Bryce, go ahead. I guess so, here we go. Okay.
I thank you, Chair. I recognize also that the people doing this are in medical fields that are doing this. Most of us who work in the medical field are not doing this for the compensation.
All right, Bryce, go ahead.
Commissioner Hodge.
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarre.
Yes.
Commissioner Light.
Yes.
Commissioner Machieski.
Yes.
Commissioner Robbie.
Yes. Individuals making about 150,000. Yes.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Sanders.
Yes.
Commissioner Scott.
Yes, on temp employees. No on the portion that we already voted no on at one point in this board, which is paying people who make over $150,000, an $8,000 bonus that could be used to help people in barrier busters instead. Thank you.
Commissioner Somerville.
Yes.
And Commissioner Beeman.
I'm also going to say yes, but not to the more than 150. That's a no.
All right, motion passed. That's the last item on our agenda there for resolutions. We'll move into a report from the county administrator.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioners, I wanted to make you aware that of a couple of events. One, we had this morning, our employee recognition event. I want to thank Commissioner Sanders who stepped in and not only represented the board, but also gave one of the awards. That event was very well attended. And I want to thank all of you for giving us the fuel to make certain that all of our county employees feel recognized. It was a fantastic event and again, very well attended and spirits were high coming out of that. I'd also want to say that this is the last meeting of the year and thank all of you for approving the 4-year budget. As was mentioned by a couple of you, this is only the beginning. The budget is a living document, and it certainly affords you all at any time, for any reason, the opportunity to make any modifications that you deem appropriate. Additionally, as you all know, every year that budget comes back to you all for reaffirmation. So again, those are opportunities to make mid-term or mid-season adjustments. So once again, thank you all for the budget.
You're welcome.
That concludes my report.
You're welcome. Got done. All right, great. Move on to report from me. Nothing long, just thank you all for a great year. We've done a lot and we will see a presentation, I believe, in the beginning of next year about many of the accomplishments of the board and the organization early next year. So thank you for everyone and all your work and working with me as chair for this year here. And great, that's it. Items for current and future discussion, there are none. Unless anybody has one, you don't. There are no pending items. We will adjourn to our next session is there a motion for that? Second, all in favor? All right, happy holidays, happy new year.